Right.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Planning Commission meeting. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask you to all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Molly, would you help me with the roll call, please?
Sure thing. Commissioner Eicher?
Here.
Commissioner Cahalan?
Here.
Commissioner Hausman?
Here.
Commissioner Jashinsky?
Here.
Commissioner Merrick?
Here.
Commissioner Schultz?
Here.
Commissioner Weiler?
Here.
Mayor Atwell?
Present. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, discussion and possible action on the following minutes.
I'll move to approve minutes of June 29th.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
I'll move to approve minutes of July 27th.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions. Okay. Now we're on to citizens' comments for items only on the consent agenda. So just 3 topics. Deborah Frank, applicant. Matt Gerber, applicant, seeks approval of a permitted sign. We have Justin Chamberlain from Vital Sign. Applicant seeks permitted signage. And then 405 Genesee Street, owner Hendricks Commercial Properties. Applicant Lisa Mance, Park River CrossFit, seeks approval of business plan of operation. Is there anyone that would like to speak to any of those 3 items? Is there anyone that would like to speak to those 3 items? Seeing none, citizens' comments for the consent agenda are now closed. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda, number 6.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, now we're up for the main event of the night. So this is citizens' comments for anything else that would be on the agenda or something that you'd like to make comments on. I see a number of new faces in the audience tonight, so I have this standard reading that I go through to try to be helpful to everyone. So first I want to thank you for coming tonight. We're glad you're here. We're eager to listen to your comments on all items on or off the agenda. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes tonight because we do have a very full house. Please try not to repeat what others have said. Simply tell us you agree with their comments and add any new comments you might have. I see some new faces and we'll help you through the process. If you're unsure of something, please just ask. We want this to work for everybody. So if you're not sure, raise your hand, just ask a question, okay? And I'll do my best to answer it as it relates to citizens' comments. When you come up, we need to hear your name and address first. Then the Common Council, or the Planning Commission in this case, will listen to what you have to say. They are not allowed to answer any of these topics with you. We are just here to listen. So it's not a two-way dialogue. Don't expect answers from the people that are sitting up here. I'd also like to remind you that reaching out to your alderperson can also be a great first step for communicating and escalating for any of your concerns or feedback. So let's go ahead and get started. It's a real simple process. The first hand I see up is the person I call, and we work it out that way. Come on up, sir.
Hi, I'm Dan McCormick, 108 Hickory Court in Delafield. Thank you to the commission and Mr.
Can you
Mayor.
spell your last name?
Oh, McCormack. Just a couple of very quick comments, following up on some of the earlier meetings that have been out there. I'm sure everyone in the commission is aware of the public comments from the last Common Council meeting with regard to especially Beacon Hill and then going to a maximum of medium density rather than the high density that had been there originally. I see that's on the agenda already. Just want to reinforce that is considered, and I think medium density in terms of the integrity of Delafield and traffic and all of the other things that were talked about is very important. My other comment has to do with the development on the golf course. I see on the agenda tonight there's requests for clarification on how the density is being calculated. Living on the second hole of the golf course, we always knew that there was a possibility for the last 20 years that it may be developed. We know it was RE1. We expected that would be just the golf course, and we expected there would be roughly 1 acre average lots, which is what we were used to in our subdivision. My request to the commission is when reviewing that topic to leave it that way, and leave it that way without the athletic fields, without any of the land along the river, without any of the other extended across the river. There's one plot, I think, that goes all the way out to Main Street and, where Kurt's Restaurant is there, that's also being considered as part of the averaging. I don't believe any of that should be part of the averaging at all. It should be the golf course, as we all know it, and it should be average 1 acre. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Who would like to be next? In the back? Come on up, please.
Hello. I'm Kathy Patassin, P-T-A-C-I-N, and I live at 708 St. John's Drive. We are part of the St. John's subdivision directly across from the Northwest Academy. I appreciate the attention you're giving tonight to change Beacon Hill from medium to medium density, and I would love for you to consider going a step further and backtracking a little bit more and making this a low-density development. If you build it, they will come, and they will come at whether it's small homes on smaller areas or larger areas with maybe a more appropriate size home. Being on the subdivision is difficult to get on Highway C, has been mentioned before. It's already difficult. We have no options out of our subdivision now. I would ask that we at least see an updated traffic study that is relevant to once the grain opens and is up and running, and maybe after this high-intensity development behind the post office is completed. I haven't seen what it does to the water table that was discussed at the Planning Commission or the Common Council. I would like to see the residents of our subdivision get a packet of information like our neighbors to the north of the golf course did prior to the council meeting. Many of our residents, I'm pretty sure, do not have a clue of the impact of even a medium density development across the street. We, 2 weeks ago, it was Thursday, 2 squad cars. I was coming down Genesee Street, right in front of the gas station. 2 squad cars with lights on were trying to get through and were unable to because there was parking on each side. We actually had to dive into driveways to allow the police cars to pass. And I worry that with even the developments that have been approved, we're going to see safety hazards.
You're almost at 3 minutes. If you could try to wrap it up.
Gotcha. There is a comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2009, all 367 pages of it, if anybody wants to read it. On page 46 is a land use goal. We are to encourage development that is compatible with neighboring land uses and preserves the character of existing neighborhoods. Please take a second look at St. John subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. My name's Katie Christine. I live at 57 Oakwood Drive, right across from the golf course. Just a couple of points I want to make. I think the big theme tonight for me is density. I'm happy to hear that the recommendation is to reduce the density for Beacon Hill. I'd also like to talk about the agenda item related to density interpretation. There is a well-defined density calculation in our plan. There are multiple communities that follow that too. And I believe that Hendricks is asking us to take a different approach than what is in place to increase the number of lots that can be built upon. And I am opposed to that. I'd also like to call out to those in the room that aren't aware that the 1 acre lots on the plan, there are only 12 of them. So the remaining lots are all less than 1 acre. So I would like to put forward that my wish be that we have larger lots throughout the development. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Who would like to be next? Who would like to be next? There's a lot of people here. Don't be shy. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Sue Jurgensen, and I live at 403 Wisconsin Avenue. And I am thrilled that it is being dropped to moderate. As with everyone said, I would like it even lower just for the integrity of the subdivision. I would like to bring across a point. I would like not to have the roads Farrand and Smythe vacated. Just for the fact of, it's number one, in all honesty, it's disrespectful to St. John's. It was the founder of St. John's. His last name was Smythe. I would like to keep those roads, even from a safety standpoint, fire, rescue, traffic, any kind of outages. I've had to use that road. I've lived out there a dozen years, at least 20, 30 times, just to get around something that's been going on Highway C. And with the density, it does concern me that it's coming. So I think we should really plan for that kind of stuff and allow the crossroads to remain where they are. Integrity and everything else. I mean, I don't feel it's asking much. I don't feel it should have been given to the builder. They didn't ask for it. But as living in the community, I'm not thrilled about the moderate, but I'm much happier about it than obviously the high density. So I do appreciate your time with hearing us with that. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. My name's Barbara Rosenthal, Rosenthal. I live at 1901 Price Road.
I'm sorry, what was that road again?
Price?
Price, okay.
P-R-I-C-E. The item I would like to give comments on is number 10, the comprehensive plan and zoning, which is also known as MAP 7 on the focus groups recommendations. They had several recommendations listed for north and south of Bark River. C was the one option that I feel is more usable, or I should say desirable, for citizens along Highway 83. The north and south corridors on that west side, the traffic is very congested already, especially late in the day or during certain peak hours. The stoplights that are already at Oakwood in 83 and then up by the mobile station, Cardinal Lane and Campbell Trace, are very congested. I don't see any immediate plans by the county to widen Highway 83. I looked through 2022 to 2026 and there was nothing listed in the proposal. So you're talking about an awful lot of traffic going in and out of Highway 83, including the potential of light industrial. I'd like to know where those, I'm not asking this as a question, it's just a comment, where the truck traffic will be going, since the recommendation is not to have it go into Hirschman Lane or into Ferries Parkway. We also have that traffic, if they make it a higher density to 4+ lots per acre, would end up going to the streets that go into Nagawicka Road. Okay, we already have increased traffic going into Nagawicka Road from the dairy farm development with Mr. Seatman. Now we're going to add in a higher density group of housing that's going to be on the west side of Highway 83 north and south of Bark River. First of all, I'd like to see us save more green space. I'd like to see nature preserved. I'd like to see Bark River preserved, which leads into Nagawicka Lake and already has a high silt problem. I also would like to see the option of a conservancy group such as Tall Pines Conservancy. Anyone can look it up. It's in Shaniqua on Pine Lake. That's another excellent idea. Why we have to allow the developers to buy up land as it becomes available and give us such high density housing that we really don't need. And a lot of the areas surrounding that west of 83 that go into the neighborhoods are all 1+ acre lots. I feel that it should stay, at least if you're going to do nothing, as 1+ acre or 2+ acre on each unit. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Alrighty, who would like to be next? Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Mary Radle, R-A-D-L-E, at 700 St. John's Drive. First of all, I'd like to thank the previous speakers who were very impassioned about their concerns about our community. I've only lived here 4 years. I can't even tell you how different it's become. Today, it was backed up from Maine to Milwaukee, bumper to bumper between stop signs, and that was like 2 o'clock. I mean, it's become ridiculous. Definitely not preserving the character. I would like to request that Beacon Hill be developed at low density. As most of us are aware, the area where the post office has now been zone or land use for high density, which, as I understand it, people want to develop that into condos. I don't know what the math is on the number of people in those houses, but I do know that we have 50 houses going on the golf course. I do know that high density with condos is a very large number, and I can tell you that Beacon Hill is 30 whatever was originally requested, or it just seems like low density. Then we're in keeping with the golf course density. It's more in keeping with St. John's, keeping the roads there. I just don't know how many of you walk those roads, drive down Highway C on a frequent basis. It's terrible. It's disheartening. It's not why we moved here. I understand people want more tax revenue. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of places for it to go. As I understand it, the schools, it's not unlikely that they will have to expand. That costs money. We have increased police potentially, emergency vehicles. I just don't think getting more tax revenue is necessarily the answer. I think it could create a lot more problems. And yes, I'm concerned about the integrity of this cute, quaint community that me and my husband moved into 4 years ago to have our children and grandchildren come. And I have great concerns. And as for the traffic study that was done in the wee hours of the morning when school was not in session, I just don't know how much relevance that has when that development that's being built right now isn't there and all the other houses. So thank you for your time and consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, who would like to come on? I see you over there. Sometimes I can't see behind that pole, so if you're behind the pole, you might have to put your arm to the side.
My name is Cindy Pellegrin, Pellegrin. I live at 3901 Campbell Trace, and I'd like to talk about the proposed changes to the land use plan along the west side of Highway 83. I'm nervous, so if it's okay, I'm just going to read this.
Take your time.
Okay. So we attended the meeting on Saturday held by our alderperson Danielle Henry, and one of the reasons given for changing the land use plan was for future growth in Delafield in order to increase the finances of the city to pay for the budget. Currently, all that agricultural land is at little to no cost to Delafield. If developed, it will cost the city in many ways. 1 to 2 acre lots and industrial buildings will require curb, gutter, water, sewer, trash pickup, and increased police fire support. If more police fire is required because of increased growth, the city runs into the same budget issues of finding money to pay for 3% raises each year. We realize hard decisions must be made to balance budgets, but sometimes those costs can be found by not replacing vehicles and equipment, but rather maintaining them versus replacing with brand new, or saying no to yearly raises or cutting positions. We would like to see a detailed study of the budget to see where they're going. Let me go on. Once you develop the country and Lake Country, it is gone forever. This begs the question why some of the other land that was zoned agriculture around Delafield on the east side of the lake was not proposed to change to commercial industrial, as it would have given you immediate commercial growth, as is your argument that you need money for the city's coffers. So another statement at the meeting was keeping the charming and quaint feel of the community of Delafield. Quaint goes out the window when you are talking commercial sites. Maybe that is only meant for the downtown area of Delafield, which is already losing its quaint feel with the development in recent years. I don't know of any single person that says, I sure hope I can find a home next to an industrial park or strip mall, or I am so happy they built this fast food restaurant or garbage collection company next to our subdivision. It will really boost my home value. Open space, agricultural land, farm fields are what keep the country and Lake Country. If we develop every acre of Delafield, then we have taken away the charm and the uniqueness of our community and desire for many to live here. The communities surrounding Delafield were cited as examples of ones that are growing faster than Delafield, and we need to keep up. No, we don't need to keep up. We need to be unique and true to the type of community people desire and moved here to enjoy. The Lake Country, not the Lake City. I strongly believe that if we don't make Delafield the next Brookfield with tons of commercial development, similar to what we already have on I-94-83 corridor, then we will be even more attractive to new families and remain loyal to those who have been part of this community for years. Another reason for changing the land use was the declining population of the schools in Delafield. This land is already zoned residential agricultural, which if sold and developed means households. But if it goes to commercial, industrial, not only does that guarantee no additional families for the declining school systems of Arrowhead, Lake Country, and ULS, but the likelihood of people wanting to build next to that is severely threatened. Not to mention current housing torn down for more commercial property, adding to the loss in revenue. The argument by the planners was made that estate homes would not be attracted to the proximity of Highway 83. We disagree. Bristlecone Pines was built right on the edge of Highway 16, and it thrived. There are many other subdivisions you see driving on highways with beautiful homes that are closer to the highway than the potential homes on the parcels west of 83. There's already a barrier of trees in the median, a road called Campbell Trace, and a row of homes that exist as a bigger buffer than the ones that exist between 16 and Bristlecone Pines. As for the statement in the letter mailed to us that an example of a commercial park that successfully coexists with and adjacent to residential development in Heartland is also a misleading statement. First of all, those homes are on the back side of the industrial park, not on 83, where all the truck commercial traffic would be entering and going right by the current residents. Second, the buffer from the first row of homes in Heartland and the first commercial building is very large. Third, the current residents on Campbell Trace already hear, see, and feel the effects of the industrial park across Highway 83 right now, and putting another commercial enterprise behind them creates a noise, traffic, light pollution, and other issues that would leave them sandwiched between two industrial parks. We would also like to address a concern that was not covered in the meeting about the environment. There's tons of wildlife in the area. We see a multitude of wildlife every day. I won't go into all the different ones.
If you could try to wrap it up,
Okay.
I'm giving you a lot of extra time.
Sorry. Well, I could have my husband come up and read the second half, but let me just finish.
So try to wrap it up, please.
All right. So it was also stated that a survey went out to 3,000 people. Nobody on Campbell Trace got it. Everybody at the meeting, except for I think one or two, did not get that survey. Let's be honest. Would you want this next to your home? Would you like to spend your retirement viewing and hearing what you are proposing? Would you want your representatives to stand up and make the harder decisions to tighten the budget and say no to budget increases that we can do without, in favor of protecting the land and people whose homes adjacent to yet another shopping area, strip mall, or machine shop? I won't go into all that.
All right,
Thank you for
all
your
set?
time.
Great, thank you very much. No clapping, please. We want to be respectful to everyone. We don't want to make anybody on either side of the case feel uncomfortable, so please respect that. Come on up. Yep.
Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. I wanted to start out by saying I was at the, which was considered a neighborhood meeting about Highway 83 this past Saturday, and I wanted to thank Amy Burrows and SEH for the presentation that was helpful to see verbally and see the pictures and get a better idea of what was being discussed. That was very helpful, and thank you for taking time on your weekend, as well as many others that were here. In reference to Highway 83 and the development that's going to be done there, I do agree with what several people had talked about, the Bark River being preserved and doing something that protects the silt that goes into Nagawicca. That has been a concern for a long time, and I would agree that I would hope that in developing it, that is kept in mind. Having been a realtor for 31 years, I know waterfront property has the highest value, but certain waterfronts are more of a wetland and more conducive to saving for nature. So I hope that will be kept in mind. Going to Beacon Hill, that was originally asked for high density. Personally, I think very quaint, cute houses on smaller lots would be adorable. It did get voted down, and it's now requested as medium density. There were questions or comments about it going to possibly low density. As a realtor, the number sticks in my mind, and you have to know this every year, but if any of you don't know it, write down 43,560 square foot. That equals an acre. So if you had a lot that is 150 or 180 foot wide, keep in mind what that would look like on Beacon Hill for the width of it, and would you really enjoy it as much as you would a potential half acre or even quarter acre, possibly mixed in. I'm all for not having cookie cutter, and my big request of the developer is that there not be 8 models to choose from or 10 models, encouraging some custom builds and a lot of variation. So if you have, just as a for instance, if you have 3 dozen homes, I would hope that there not be a repeat of one house more than once, or one house design more than once. Other than that, I think everything's going well, and thank you very much for everybody coming tonight and being supportive of what's going on in Delafield.
Thank you for the comments. Come on up, sir.
Hi, Michael Diamore, 2812 Horseshoe Bend. I think you know what I'm going to say.
Can you repeat your address, please?
2812 Horseshoe Bend. This is regarding the progress on 83. I'd like to echo the lady, not just before, but the second lady just prior. I said pretty much all of those things to you and also got shut down because I went long. But I think I represent what the people want. You, regarding Nagawicca Heights, so few people knew about it, but the people that did came in and we all said the same thing. Hey, how about just reasonable growth? Reasonable growth, that's all we want. You listened, you thanked us all, you talked about the ponds and the fields and the paths, and it's good for nature, and it went through, despite what we wanted. And then you turned around and literally put in quarter-acre lots right next to it. So these people, no ponds, no fields, no paths, no good for the environment. These people with their $1.5 million homes in Nagawicca Heights are now looking at this. And right across the street, the same thing with $3 million homes, they're looking at this. This is just the beginning of what you're talking about now on 83. Quaint and charming with a side of light industry. Are you kidding me? Businesses. On top of this, hey, we don't want to compare ourselves to Heartland, right, Amy? But you did. You kept bringing it up. We don't want to compare ourselves to Oconomowoc, but you did. This is just going on and on and on. You hail yourself a hero. Look at all the taxes I'm bringing in. Isn't this great? But you're selling off the very thing that makes us wonderful. I'm saying this now for the fourth time in this office, in this room. Once it's gone forever. This is appalling. You should be ashamed. I'm angry, and the people behind me should be angry too because we love this city, and you're destroying it. You are a civil servant. You're being paid to represent our wishes. Please do that. All of you, please pay attention. This is a wonderful town. Don't destroy it.
Thank you for the comments. Please, no clapping. All right, who would like to be next? Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Hi, my name is John Raveris, Ravaris, 174 North Fieldstone Road in Delafield. Hard to follow that. Hard to hear, quite frankly, because not everybody echoes your thoughts. It's a pleasure to be able to share openly what we all want in the city, not just a few. I was here with our group, Citizens for Responsible Growth, over the last 2 years as we looked at making hard decisions around 705 Genesee Street, and nice to see the hole in the ground moving forward. One comment I just wanted to make on behalf of our group and the city and people who are looking at these projects is a concept that we all flushed out over the last 2 years, and that is looking at our city as an ecosystem that has to survive by itself. And that ecosystem, as we've talked before, has a component of housing, has a component of restaurants, has a component of schools and stores, of public safety, police and fire, and public officials who give their time and don't get paid a lot of money to do so on behalf of us all, which we appreciate. These are really, really tough decisions. The St. John's development affects myself. I live across the street in Oakwood. I don't like traffic as much as anybody else, but the concept is that we have to think about the survival of our city and making a good use of mix of everything in that city to include industrial, light, low, housing, high, low, density, all those things. And as you all face the tough decisions that we have to make around this, we just want to make sure that we continue to think about the ecosystem of our town and having it survive for the long term. I agree with what everybody has said. We want to keep what is special about Delafield. In doing so, we have to make some tough decisions about economic development, about tax revenue, about being able to have police come to our house in a reasonable amount of time, fire come to our house when the place is on fire, having our schools strong and supportive. And that comes through a very strong community, an ecosystem. I always like what Amy Quinn says at Belfry. Everybody wants to come to Belfry on Saturday night to have dinner, but Saturday night at Belfry doesn't exist if Tuesday at lunch doesn't exist. And you have to think about the good and the bad. So just wanted to give our support to the commissioners, the council, on the tough decisions that you have to make around housing, around 83, around St. John's. But just wanted, as you make those decisions, to think about the ecosystem and how it all works together to keep our city as special as we all want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? All right, going what? Okay, come on up.
Hi, Robert Maynor, 2410 Fair Lakes Parkway. Can you spell your last name? Maynor.
And then the address one more time.
2410 Fair Lakes Parkway.
Thank you.
So I just want to follow up with a few comments, not anything too crazy. I was here for the meeting on Saturday as well, and it was a very healthy discussion, a lot of it going on, and I really just want to kind of pinpoint it down to, I guess, my position in the community, and that's mainly pertaining to the Fair Lakes Parkway development. That development's a relatively new one. It's only maybe 12 years old, I think. So I know that myself and the people on that street in particular are very concerned about traffic patterns, what industrial uses might mean, to the farmland that's between us and 83. So I know myself, when we decided to move into that community, we took a pretty exhaustive look at what that farmland could potentially be in the future. And that was going to be basically residential 2-3 acre home sites. So that played a lot into the decision that we made to live in that community. So we went through a battle here a few years ago with the SELA development, which ultimately was not done, which I think was the right choice at the time. But now this is the second go around that I feel like we're kind of moving the goalposts, so to speak. So I just want to, whatever is decided here, listen to the discussion on Saturday. I believe there's merit to what you're doing. I believe the focus group, probably did a pretty exhaustive job, and there was certainly points to be made to look at doing something to that. I guess whatever ultimately the decision is that you take into account the people that are there between Nagelwicker Road and 83, especially in the developments on Fair Lakes Parkway and maybe Hirschman Lane. As you guys go through these decisions, we would ask that you give us that consideration to make sure there is enough of a buffer there. There was a comment made that there would be no commercial traffic. To me, that's an empty promise. I don't know how you can possibly enforce that. Anybody on the west side is going to want to come through Fair Lakes or Hirschman. The minute that road is opened up, there's going to be a massive amount of traffic on it. And I'm spoiled. We live on a dead-end road. We have no traffic. I mean, it's whoever lives on that road and the Amazon person, generally is what we see for traffic. So it's going to be a huge impact to both of those roads, no matter what goes in there, whether it's residential or mixed use. So I guess our hope is that we can do whatever possible, whatever ends up being in there, to try and limit that through stop signs, speed bumps, whatever, as you kind of go through your process. And that's all the comments I have. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. All right, who would like to be next right there?
Hi, Kathy McCormick, MCCORMACK. I live at 108 Hickory Court. And what I want to say is thank you all you guys for doing what you're doing. I have been at more meetings of this caliber in the last 3 months than my previous 21 years in Delafield. And I'm embarrassed and I'm sad that I haven't done this. And what you guys are doing really is the yeoman's work, and I appreciate your consideration and your attention. I just wanted to comment about the traffic that I see is going to be incredibly problematic if all of this development is done. I know that there's a traffic study. I've heard a whole lot, it was done when there wasn't any school going on or whatever. I mean, the traffic is going to be terrible. I was up in Minneapolis this weekend in Uptown, looking for a parking place. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Uptown or not, but it's like the cool area in Minneapolis where all the kids go. I found a parking place in Minneapolis faster than I found one in Delafield. It took me 25 minutes to find a parking place in Delafield to go for a nail appointment. That's ridiculous. So I really hope that you guys are considering the traffic and the impact on the soul of Delafield when you guys are making your considerations. And I thank you again for all of your service.
Thank you for the comments. All right, I think the gentleman back here.
Kelly Durian, 2400 Fair Lakes Parkway.
What was the last name?
Durian, D-U-R-I-A-N. Just wanted to say that I echo Robert Maynor, who's my neighbor, his sentiments entirely. I recognize that as it pertains to the proposed land use for 83.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
83 north of Bark River, as I'm on Fair Lakes Parkway. I recognize that there's something that's going to be done at some point. It's not reasonable to probably assume that it's going to maintain agricultural use indefinitely. Obviously, Robert mentioned the aesthetics of trying to maintain the current aesthetic of the neighborhood, 3+ acres, et cetera. Given what's been proposed, there is concern between the commercial utilization and then some of the moderate to high density that's proposed for that area as well. Obviously, from just plain aesthetics, there's that, but there's also someone earlier mentioned traffic, and on 83, especially if there's no plans to widen it, we would anticipate that there'd be significant increase in traffic, not only selfishly on Fair Lakes Parkway and Hirschman, but probably on Nagawicca Road as people use it as a way to maneuver around a more congested 83. Obviously, looking to maintain some element of green space too. People had mentioned the noise and light pollution that would be increased, especially with commercial development. So we want to make sure that was consideration as well. And then as we get further down the path, I think the concern around commercial traffic, again, I echo Robert's concern there about finding ways to limit it, coming back through those arteries, then on to Nagawicca Road via Hirschman and Fair Lakes Parkway, trying to find traffic calming measures, speed bumps, things along those lines that are able to kind of keep it from being, just a throughput for other people. So, I think as Robert mentioned, the entire area over there is very concerned with what's going to be happening. We recognize there's development that's going to take place. We just would hope that we can maintain the quality that has existed there today. So, all right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Got it. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to make comments right there?
Hi, I'm Casimir Westphal, Westphal.
Can you spell your first name?
Absolutely. It's K-A, Z as in zebra, M as in Mary, I-R. My husband and I just purchased the home at 502 Anderson Drive about 4 months ago. I have resided in Delafield for the better part of my 32 years. I grew up on the street in Anderson, 2 houses down with my grandparents. My parents are right across the street. I have yet to be able to attend one of these meetings, but my mom has been gracious enough to keep me in the loop. when we're talking about the development by St. John's, I would just like everyone to just keep in mind there's a lot of young families now that are starting to move into that neighborhood. I have a 4-year-old, we're expecting another, and so that's why we purchased the home. The neighborhood has always been a safe environment, running down the street, us kids riding our bikes. Right now, we tried walking downtown Delafield. We tried crossing over Highway C, turned on the light, the pedestrian light there by St. John's, and I had to wait a long time, a good 5 minutes with my 4-year-old before we could cross. No one stopped. The only safe way right now for us to get down and walk downtown, because that's what you buy a house for in Delafield. You want to go downtown, you want to enjoy what Delafield offers, is by walking through St. John's. It's the safest way. By removing those streets, that safety is no longer there. I reiterate all of the traffic concerns that everyone has talked about. It's not fun trying to come downtown Delafield and enjoy things when it's just impossible to get anywhere. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing, but keeping into consideration some lower density homes in the St. John's neighborhood, because that just keeps the integrity of what it's been the last 30 years. So, thank you.
Thank you for the comments. All right, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Kurt Blehovde, 333 Oakwood Drive.
Can you spell your last name?
Sure, Blehovde. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for all your hard work and all the hard decisions that one of the other gentlemen made tonight. You guys have a lot before you, and to listen to all of our comments, we appreciate that. There are some good things that my wife and I love about Delafield. We moved here 20 years ago. The small, quaint, unique village that we have here, and by taking away a lot of the green space and putting in the medium or higher density housing, that will make the traffic, like the young lady just before me spoke, that's going to make that traffic even worse than it is now. And we've walked downtown on the new walk. By the way, you guys did a great job. I think there was maybe a previous mayor, but that new walk that comes down Highway C downtown.
Oh, that was this mayor.
Apologies, Mayor. I haven't kept up on all the developments. Thank you for that. But we've made that walk downtown, and we've got to go down by the pond or what have you downtown, and it's great to be able to do that. But I agree with the young lady before me. It is very hard to get across Highway C, either at the top of the hill here or where the walk is. I was coming home from work one day, and a construction truck, like landscape truck or whatever, came down the road and was probably 2 truck lengths from that crosswalk where I think she was talking about by the river there. And 2 kids started crossing the walk because the truck must have appeared to them that was pretty far back. He locked up his brakes and squealed his tires to stop and not hit them, and he missed them by probably 15 feet. So if we increase the traffic around here with medium or higher density housing and development, I understand from the tax revenue side of it and that kind of thing, and there is going to be development like one of the other gentlemen mentioned, but just in the Beacon Hill area, I would ask that you would keep that to the low density. Raise my taxes. I'd rather pay more taxes than see a bigger development in town. I know it's not going to happen for one person, but we live on Oakwood Drive, and sometimes motorcycles go down that road so fast you can't tell what color they are. So when we increase and I've called the police department before, and they're very responsive. My daughter is going to be a senior in high school. About 4 months ago, she was cooking something on the stove and somehow flashed a flame in the pan. Panicked, threw it out the patio door halfway across the backyard, and called the fire department, and they were there in she said in minutes. They were there quick. Another time, my sister-in-law let herself in the garage with the punch code, didn't know my daughter was home studying for whatever, and freaked out. She called the police department, and my brother-in-law, who was in the car waiting, said that 2 police squads showed up on our corner, 1 in each driveway, in 30 seconds. One was right down the street on Hillcrest, up by Copperfield or whatever. But we really love that responsiveness from our city and our firefighters and our police officers. And I think adding more, high density, medium density, more people here it's going to make that response time slower. You know, maybe someone's house will burn faster, or something bad will happen that, you know, the quick response won't be there. So just ask that you would consider that. And thank you again, Mayor, for putting that walk in. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, do I see a hand up over here? There we go.
Good evening. My name is Jim Pellegrin.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Jim Pellegrin.
Can you spell your last name?
Pellegrin. 3901 Campbell Trace. I just want to point out that in all the communities that I've ever lived in, and I guarantee if you go to all these other surrounding communities that are developing and creating commercial properties, that they always have a budget shortfall. And so you can keep adding all you want and destroying the land that is out here and destroying this community as it is now. And 20, 30 years from now, you could build it into a Milwaukee, and you're still going to have those budget shortfalls unless you take the hard decisions and fix that. And so as a flight commander in the Air Force, I had to do that. And I told my guys that I wouldn't send you anywhere or do anything unless I did it first. And so I deployed first into all the combat areas before they even were asked. And I did those budget cuts that we did without and made it work. And so is all I ask is treat us the same as I treated my guys. You're the leaders now. And so lead by example. If you think that this is such a great idea, put it in your backyard first. You can change the zoning in your community, and when a house goes up for sale, they can make that commercial. But you won't do that. And so lead by example. And if you can't do that, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, do I need to be in this job? That's all I have. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
My name is Whitney Schneider. I live at 3115 State Road 83. I do appreciate all of the comments. I think the conversation surrounding what could become along 83 is a really important conversation, given the size of the land that is available there. My husband and I, we live right on 83, and so when it comes to traffic, we're no strangers to it. I think anything that you were to do along that roadway anything you do anywhere is going to increase traffic, especially on a popular roadway such as this. So if anyone knows better than us, I feel, the city has the best intentions of what happens on land. It really does. These decisions, we understand, are difficult. You, as a plan commission and common council, you can be picky. And I like that. I think that's one of the good qualities about it. It can be difficult when these decisions come into play, keeping everyone in consideration. I will say the main thing when keeping this consideration, the commercial/industrial, I feel the word industrial is the scary word here. So commercial is the less intimidating word. I know that they're kind of paired in this proposal along 83. I can say that I feel that it's probably the most a practical proposal, since living on 83, I can tell you it's not ideal for a family. I don't believe residential housing along 83 is a popular, it's going to be well received for families. We have two little ones. We have a 1 and a 2-year-old. And with a new route for fire and rescue along 83 that's happened in the recent year, I would say, they do wake our children up at night frequently, going up and down that road. So I can say that residential along 83 is not going to be ideal. Families just won't want it, because I can say that our family doesn't love it. So I think that a nice alternative is a the potential of having commercial opportunities along that roadway. Having said that, please be picky about the types of entities that could come in and how it could be developed. I think that you have a great opportunity to control the businesses and the reputation that Delafield has for what businesses want to come to this area. I believe that controlling repetition will be very important, and that would really go a long way in how it is developed by keeping specific repetitive businesses that already exist within our community out and feeling out what should be best utilized there. Off the top of our heads, some things that we would, as a family that lives in the community that would be surrounded by these types of commercial properties, we would love to see something as the extent of restaurants that have more green space. Everyone loves to be outdoors in Wisconsin, and we soak up every second that we can outside. So these patios and these, even Heartland parks that are doing these beer gardens with food and things, everyone wants to be outside when they're dining. So having something like that would be really, I think, welcomed. In addition to, I know our kids are getting to be this age where they're going to start going to public childcare, and I can tell you that the need in this area for quality, I would say nature-based or early childhood education is rapidly growing, and it's incredibly scarce. Waitlist for getting kids into places is insane right now. And places like Lake Country Montessori, Tiny Green Trees, the Living Tree Lake Country, all of these places, Prairie Hill Waldorf, these need green spaces to educate children outside in these early years. And by offering that along this roadway to allow these families who are coming in the residential that's proposed in the back part of this area, I think would be absolutely phenomenal, so that we didn't have to wait until summer of next year for our kids to even be considered to go to a public preschool. The demand is just insane for these places. So
if you could try to wrap it up, I'm giving you some extra time.
We're really just hoping that when you're being picky about what kind of commercial entities can go along this roadway, to consider the families that are looking at those residential lots, because we would love to see those businesses really pair perfectly with the residents that go in there, because again, I can say from experience that I don't believe families will want to be on Highway 83. So I do think that you're taking the right direction in making that a commercial setting versus a residential setting. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Who would like to be next? Going once.
Chris Miller, Miller Marriott Construction.
Your address?
249 Pauline Avenue, Heartland, Wisconsin.
Pauline Avenue?
Yeah, Pawling. I felt like it was appropriate. I do appreciate the comments. I am impressed with the community and what everybody has said, and it's impressive to see this many people care. I just want to clear up a couple things and make sure the board understands our point and how we're looking at this opportunity at Beacon Hill, because it is an opportunity. City of Delafield's a great place. When we proposed our development, we had mentioned some of our past developments, and really they were mentioned in the idea that we like to preserve what's in a community already. And so I guess if I'm sitting in the shoes of the residents of the city of Delafield, I can appreciate protesting high density, because they don't know me from the man on the moon, really. And medium density ensures a similar product to what's to the north and to the east. And so I can appreciate their concerns. And so in that respect, I appreciate what they're saying. I will point out that we didn't really, while technically we proposed high density, our smallest lot was still bigger than the smallest lot to the north. So our intention isn't to make it different. It's meant to blend it in. And if medium density is what the community is pushing for, it will be beautiful. We are a custom home builder as well as a developer. So we offer the ability to do a variety of homes. They aren't cookie cutter, and you can see that from our past developments. There's been a lot of comments about traffic. And I agree, traffic is always a concern. I think it's important to understand when we did the traffic study that has been submitted, it is how the traffic is affected by the development that is being proposed. Many of the traffic concerns are not from actual residents in the area, but people coming through on C in other areas. So I'm not discounting the traffic concern. What I'm saying is the traffic study addresses how the developments themselves impact traffic. And that's what the study is meant for. So please understand that as we review the traffic study. It was very thorough, very thoughtfully done, and very detailed, and has already been submitted. We've also submitted a hydrology report on the wells. It speaks for itself. I believe SEH is analyzing that as well. So I appreciate the concerns. It's a great community. We'd like to be part of it. I think they're reasonable asks, and I think we'd be a good addition to the community.
Great, thank you very much for the comments. All right, anybody else? Going once? Come on up.
Hi, Christine Tuderberg, 1323 McDowell Road. So, my daughter spoke earlier. I am speaking again off the cuff because I get fired. Oh, yeah, Tuderberg, Teuteberg. So, I always get fired up in these meetings. Speaking, I live right next to Wisconsin Avenue, so I'm right by the St. John's and Wisconsin Avenue development. And I am 100% for medium density to low density. I don't want to ask for the world, but I do believe those lots shouldn't be anything less than a third acre. I realize there are some smaller homes there. There's smaller homes in lots of different neighborhoods because that's just how it was developed back in the day. But it doesn't mean that that's what we want now. So just because it was doesn't mean it's what it should be. So I do believe a third of an acre is a decent amount of space because we do have you can do half of it, half of your land can be concrete or home. Well, we want to see some green space, so if you have a third of an acre, at least you know for sure that you're going to see some actual green space where kids can play or grandkids can play. And the other thing that concerns me is if we're going to have sidewalks, which will be really great if it makes the roads safer, but that's going to take away that much more of the green space. So if we go with a third of an acre for those lots, I think what you're going to be getting is a little more green space and less concrete. So I know that we have some beautiful trees, and I'm not sure how that's going to get preserved, but we would certainly want to try to preserve some of those amazing trees that are on the St. John's land. And right now, the St. John's land has 5 homes, and I realize that we're, trying to make more homes there, but I don't know why we have to go overboard. So I think minimally a third of an acre, sprinkle in, the half-acre lots, which is what we've got on the other side as well. And I think that would be appropriate. It's going to keep down the traffic. It's going to keep down the cars in the neighborhood because we always have to move away from the road and stand on the side. Even just walking here tonight, because we walked here tonight, we had to stop and go onto the grass to let a car go by because it gets too close. So those streets aren't made for a lot of traffic. And I don't want that road, the name traffic, to be a problem, but those tiny roads are going to have more traffic with more driveways. So I guess that's my point. One of the other things that was a point from somebody else, yes, we have a lot more lot more cars downtown because we have more businesses, we're building more businesses. Where are the customers supposed to park? Where are the people going to the office building and above the grain supposed to park? I know that the people working in the grain, I think, are parking below it. I don't know if the customers are. But as it is now, we've got the one parking lot where we do the Delafield days. Where are the people who come into town for Delafield days or any of our big events going to park? So I don't know if that's really been thought about. Like, we almost need a parking structure for Delafield, which is ridiculous. But we're building so much and there's nowhere for people to go. So I think we need to think about that. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, who'd like to be next? Going once. Oh, there you go. That was a little hand.
Cindy Bendrick, 332 Oakwood Drive.
Can you please spell your last name?
Bindrich. So I spoke at the last meeting that we had about St. John's development, and everything that I'm hearing everybody talk about is the traffic. And one of the things that got shot down was the proposal to do that little road that was going to be on the southwest corner of the golf course, and it was going to go through Cushing Park. Is that Cushing Park?
Yes.
I guess that was shot down. I don't know if that can ever be brought up again, but my point is they need to do there needs to be some other way for all those houses to exit that subdivision. And that to me was the only way that it was going to happen. Because yeah, they can go out onto Oakwood Drive, but they're going to turn right and they're going to go on to C. So, or they're going to come out onto C right from the subdivision immediate. But I just feel like all this money is going to be brought into Delafield that's going to help Delafield grow, but yet there isn't any suggestions being made onto how everybody's going to keep the traffic from getting crazier. Like the last woman that just spoke, there's no parking. I have this vision that I feel like this is all going to be developed, and then you know darn well that C is going to get widened, and it's going to be a bottleneck that's going to come into downtown Delafield. They can't put a roundabout in there. Okay, so what else are they going to do? They're going to take away the parking on the side. So now there's less parking in downtown. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just feel like there's no explanation being given as to what the mayor or all of you are proposing that's going to help alleviate all of the traffic and the parking problem. And if you could come up with some plan to get all of those 60 whatever homes that are going to be going in there, if they could get out of the subdivision some other way besides coming on to C or going on to Oakwood if they want to go west. Because they're only going to be able to get out onto Oakwood if they want to go west. But if they want to, if they live on the east end of the development and they want to come out and there is no other exit besides Oakwood, I don't see that being the most convenient way for somebody to get to 94. You know what I mean? They're going to be going on to Oakwood. They're going to turn left. They're going to have to go down Mill Street, I think, or Mill Road, or go all the way down to follow B. But
yeah, if you could try to wrap it up.
Yes, I just, all I'm hearing about is the traffic, and I just hope that you all take into consideration the fact that something needs to be done to help the flow of the traffic so that it doesn't get worse. That's all.
Thank you very much for the comments. Sir, way in the back, come on up.
Oh my gosh, 21.
Hello, I'm Dick DiAugustini. I'm guessing you're going to want me to spell that. I will. It's D apostrophe, capital A, Gostini, and 3727 Campbell Trace. So Cindy Pellegrin took all of my information, so I'm gonna paint you a picture.
So you disagree with her?
No, I do not. Not at all. But I would like to paint you a picture because I have the unique position of living next to an industrial park, in that I live right across the street from the Heartland Industrial Park. And I take a lot of offense at the statement of the commercial park successfully coexists with adjacent residential development. First of all, their development isn't in the park, whereas this is proposing that literally on two sides of my property would be zoned industrial. So I'm actually in the park. Heartland, they're not in the park. I'm across the street from the park. And I want to tell you how it is for me. It's pretty awful. I got to tell you, there's light pollution, there's smells, the traffic is tremendous. Using it as a through street in the case of this planned development, you're talking about going through a residential area with residents, going into an industrial park, back into a residential area, and then to Nagawicca Road. That's ludicrous to me. Getting to Piggly Wiggly from my house is difficult. You've got over-the-road trailers, you've got big semi-trucks delivering things into the industrial park. It is not a place where, families and people should be driving. Literally, you shouldn't be going through an industrial park to get somewhere else. Industrial parks are not designed that way. The other thing is sound. There's an awful lot of sound and noise that goes on. The disposal company at 4 o'clock in the morning, because apparently that's when they want to do this, but they literally drop steel dumpsters on the ground from, it seems like 40 feet, but it's probably not. But it is unbelievably loud. I sleep through the train. The train doesn't bother me at all anymore, but those things just rattle me out of bed all the time during the summer when I try to sleep with my windows open. So that is not a quality of life that I feel is consistent with Delafield. I've done it. It isn't great. I happen to visit industrial parks all over. I travel through 5 states, and I've never seen one out of the hundreds and hundreds I've seen that could be described as cute or quaint or charming. And that's what I believe Delafield, those are the words that come to my mind with Delafield. And I would just encourage you guys to not try to be somebody we're not, and try to be who we are, and stick within that, and be brave enough to ride that out as who we are as people in Delafield. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, all right. Going once. Going twice. Citizens' comments are now closed. Okay. Thank you sincerely for all those comments.
Yeah, good comments.
Okay, now we will move on to number 8, unfinished business. A, DLC 0792074, 439 St. John's Road, DLC 0792069, and DLC 0792078, 411 St. John's Road, and DLC 0792073, and DLC 0792060, unknown address on Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. Owner Hendricks Commercial Properties, LLC. Applicant, City of Delafield. Applicant seeks approval of Resolution 20-22-24 for the Land Use Plan Amendment from the institutional category to the medium density residential category to accommodate a single-family residential development on property located between Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road. Amy,
Okay.
the ball is yours.
So you heard Chris Miller speak from Miller Marriott. He previously requested to amend the land use category of this area in the peach color. I have my cursor on it on the screen between Wisconsin Avenue and St. John's Road to high-density residential. That would have allowed greater than 4 units per acre without a cap beyond a zoning district. At that time, he was proposing 34 lots, which yielded a density of approximately 4.5 units per acre, which I just stated. The Plan Commission recommended approval of that request and did pass a resolution to be considered by Common Council. That resolution or ordinance to pass the terms of the resolution was denied with a vote of 4-2 in favor of denying it. I think it failed at a 4-2 vote would be the better way of saying it. Concerns were based on density and traffic, and they did not have the traffic impact analysis to review at that meeting. The city is now making a revised request based on the economic development focus group recommendations to identify the areas appropriate for responsible growth in order to address the city's budget deficit and provide additional housing in areas that will help the community thrive and the connecting it to downtown. So now the request is to reduce that density to medium density, which caps the density at 4 units per acre instead of providing a more than 4 acre density. This would yield a maximum of 30 units, which would be at a minimum a reduction of 4 lots. Again, this is a very high level land use plan consideration. As the applicant moves forward and we make determinations, we have to identify the legal description without the public road right-of-ways and determine what that actually means. But for now, it appears that would yield no more than 30 units. The category, if you look on the map on the screen, does match the land use categories to the north of the development and then extending north of that on Oakwood Drive. The lot also, or the new land division, which has not been designed in any way at this time under this new proposal, would yield less lots than the existing platted subdivision for the subject land. So at the last meeting, we did talk about how there are 36 legal lots of record within this same space, and so it would be a reduction of that. The property is adjacent to a thoroughfare road, Genesee Street, and the applicant did make a good point with the traffic impact analysis. So when they do an analysis, and in this one in particular, they analyze the development of the golf course, they analyze the development of the Miller Marriott development proposal, and then they also analyze the development including 705 Genesee Street, which would be a significant development. That traffic impact analysis did state that there should not be a noticeable increase to delays or stacking of cars along Genesee Street or Oakwood Drive corridors. And it did consider the development from the golf course, the use that existed prior, and then again the subject properties in 705 Genesee Street. Oftentimes that traffic is coming from the pressure that we receive from adjacent communities as well. So Delafield may continue to see an increase in traffic along Genesee Street, in part because of this development, but also quite a bit of traffic in other directions along a thoroughfare that does span a much larger area than just the community. Let's see what else. We talked about the traffic impact analysis. The applicant did do a analysis to see how the construction of wells would potentially draw down other wells. That is currently being reviewed. Again, the report is yielding insignificant impacts, which we would review in much more detail as part of a development proposal. The property would be served by sewer, and the subject areas are one of the few areas left near downtown where development could be accommodated to provide the housing within walking distance of downtown. And there would be sidewalks surrounding on both the north and south sides. In order for anything to happen out here, it is in an institutional zoning district as well. So the property would need to be rezoned, and the development would need to be reviewed by the Plan Commission and Common Council. So this is one step in the process. At that time, detailed consideration will be given to traffic, stormwater management, public road improvements. Any of these public roads will need to be improved to meet the public road standards. Open space will be considered impervious surface, trail systems, landscaping, tree protection. I think somebody had mentioned tree protection. We do review, as you know, the city has a pretty strict tree protection or mitigation ordinance. So any tree of certain species that gets torn down needs to be replaced at 1 inch per 1 inch, or they have to pay $250 per inch that goes into a tree fund. It goes specifically into a tree fund or for those types of improvements. And then we would review the water supply impacts, subdivision restrictions, grading. There's a lot of review. So with that, unless there's questions, the agenda item is to consider passing a resolution for consideration by Common Council to modify the category from institutional to medium density residential. That resolution does entail 2 restrictions. One, that the property go through a rezone with all of conditions of that rezone being met, and that the development be met, and that the property be connected to sewer.
So just an overview, you heard similar comments tonight that were made in front of the city council, and of the people that voted against it. My recollection is that those council members felt more comfortable with the medium density as opposed to the high density that we had recommended. So just give you a feedback of what took place at the council if you didn't watch it on YouTube.
Well, I'll lead with a motion to approve Resolution 2022-2024 for the land use plan amendment from the institutional category to medium density as presented.
I'll second.
Second.
Hausman.
And I will follow up with the comments that Amy, I appreciate exactly all the detail that you go into in these explanations. I mean, it's great. I mean, I'll just say that for somebody who's very concerned, for someone who's very close to this development and people that have expressed concerns about the development, all of your information sounds very statistical, and it's very rational and scientific, and it is not meant to sell this. It is meant to present the statistics and the information and all of it. Just because I've been on the other side of this, where it sounds like somebody's trying to promote something that maybe people are against, but it's not. These are all the things that are following the code and I did vote for this based on it being proposed as a high density development. And in doing this for a while, I appreciate the art in the fact that we have lots of scrutiny to put up for the development as this moves forward, for the trees, the traffic, the safety, the impact on the environment, the aesthetics. And either way, I think we can make this into a compatible development for the neighbors, and we look forward for the continued input that we get. Because if you do just drive or walk there, I mean, you can see there is an enormous number of trees there. What's the deemed quote a quality tree? All trees that provide shade and barriers are quality, in my opinion. Unless you're thinking about buckthorn, even though they might be doing that. But there's a lot of things that go forward from this: the zoning, and then the general development plan, the specific implementation plan, as far as how we deal with lights and traffic and all that stuff. I'm trying to reassure people that people brought up cookie cutter and other things. I'm promoting this as a positive step to help preserve St. John's for what it is, to get benefit out of the land so that they can stay where they are and that Hendricks can help support them. So that's my rationale for moving this forward.
Yeah, Tim, and just a comment, I think we know it, but just for everybody, this is only like a very preliminary step. There's a whole nother step where the developer has to present what they would develop and how it would work, and exits and sidewalks or not sidewalks that get approved by this commission or altered or constrained or loosened, right? So I think we know that, but just so the general public knows that too. This is a very basic first step.
And I appreciate the fact that medium density is a maximum that is different than high density. So I mean, this is an increased limitation on what can be developed. So I do appreciate that and the effort that went through to protest that. And so I'm done with my.
Amy, when it comes to then, like, back to your point about, a couple weeks ago I drove by there, the older homes and the newer, and there is a lot of topography and older trees. It's like, man, you don't want that to go anywhere, right? Is that more when it comes to the actual subdivision development guidelines is where we can influence that more?
When they come in here for, usually the last few developments you've seen have been plan unit developments, which is like a whole nother layer of review. This subdivision will not be part of a plan unit development, but it is a subdivision which is still subject to the general like site plan requirements. So anything other than single family home remodeling or reconstruction on an existing lot really needs to go through the process of the tree mitigation, tree preservation. We review, as part of the subdivision review, we will look at landscaping, any kind of lighting they would propose, which they may not be proposing any. The sidewalks, infrastructure, stormwater, so grading. We are aware that these lots are tight and there are existing drainage concerns in the area. So one thing we have already told the developer is that if he moves forward, we want a very specific master grading plan for the build-out stage. The lots are small enough where they can design this pretty closely on the front end. And then any tweaks from that going forward would need to be reviewed by our engineering staff. So it's going to be looked at very closely. And one nice thing is that they will be developing all of the lots, so there will be continuity in how things are done, or now that knowledge base from the development itself, instead of each builder coming in and not quite knowing the process that we've gone through. And I know I don't want to speak on behalf of Chris, but apparently there's a giant oak tree out there by the president's house. It's my understanding that will be, that it's
efforts will be made.
Efforts will be made. That's a good way of saying it, to protect that tree.
Oh, there's another one.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we will move on to 8B, DLC 0792990 Oakwood Drive and DLC 0793997 owner Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC, applicant John Kenman, Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC. Applicant seeks an interpretation from the Planning Commission related to the method of calculating density on the properties. Amy, you want to give us an overview and then we'll let you guys go.
Okay, so the subject property, this is the golf course and adjacent property to the south. Did receive approval from Common Council to amend the land use plan category, from institutional to low density residential at the August meeting. The owner has prepared a concept development that does include 50 lots. After reviewing the lot area calculations and the comprehensive plan, I came up with a total of 46 lots that would be allowed. And the applicant does feel like they're meeting the requirements of 50 lots, so the city attorney did say that the Plan Commission would be the appropriate body to determine the proper interpretation of the ordinance. So this gets kind of confusing, but I will explain it the best I can. The total acreage on the northern property is 52.27 acres. And you know what? I think I'm just going to, I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about when I say northern and southern properties here. Okay, so this northern parcel, the large rectangular piece, is 52.27 acres without consideration given to the athletic field. So the entire acreage is 74.5 acres. You break out the athletic field and you get 52.27 acres. Josh, am I correct in that calculation that came from the applicant?
Correct.
And then the acreage on the south property, which is this acreage, which is part of the development, is 7.8 acres. I think somebody in the audience had said they should only be allowed to use the northern acreage, not the southern acreage. We don't have the control of what they can or can't use if they include both properties in the development. That's the acreage that we're considering. However, the development does need to comply with the comprehensive plan, and there's two most relevant sections to determine density in that comprehensive plan. One is the land use map, which we are used to looking at all the time. And that plan has the property designated, all of it, the two properties, in low density residential, which is 1 acre per unit, and parks. And then wetlands, floodplain, and conservancy lands are not included in any calculation. They're not buildable lands, so they don't get any credit for that. Then there's a separate map. It's a primary environmental corridor map, which is a component of the comprehensive plan. And there are portions of this property that are designated as environmental corridor. And I'm going to go back to the staff report has a table in it. So the areas that are upland corridor, not wetland, conservancy, or conservation zone lands, can be developed at 1 unit per 5 acre. And I guess that's where we have the interpretation question. So the plan says that residential development is inclusive of the entire, and that's not true. The residential development in environmental corridors is limited to the upland environmental corridors at an overall density of no more than 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. And conservation subdivisions are encouraged. So I am interpreting the plan to mean that residential development is inclusive of the entire development, and the acreage identified in the corridor is given the credit of 1 unit per 5 acre, whether or not the homes are built in or outside of it. Most PUDs actually do have all of their lots located outside of the corridor, so it's common to not build the lots inside the corridor, but to get a little bit of credit for doing that. The calculation is applied similarly in adjacent communities. A couple of examples would include the Village of Summit, Town of Delafield, and then Waukesha County uses the same provision as well in the unincorporated areas. Otherwise, what you would be doing is you'd be giving all of that density. In this case, there's not a ton of corridor. But in some subdivisions, you might have a majority of corridor and a little bit outside of. And if you took that, for example, 1 unit per acre, and you tried to dump that all outside of the corridor, that would be really overloading the acreage that is developable, where the idea behind this is you get a little something, whether it be in or out, but not the full 1 unit per acre. So if you did go with the developer's interpretation, which he will have his opportunity to go through that, it would be setting a new precedent. We did recently approve Hawthorne Farm in the northwest corner of the city and Nagawicca Heights on the east side along 83. Both of those developments considered the environmental corridor at 1 unit per 5 acre, and neither of them developed within it. And it did not come up as a contentious issue either. So if you look at my table, you can see the breakdown. The northern property that's just upland, non-resource, is 45.5 acres. So, and then the southern property, they actually don't have any acreage that is not corridor or wetland. And then the northern property that does have upland corridor is 4.7 acres, and the southern property has a ½ acre. So when you put it all together, add it up, you end up with 46.5 acres, and we don't round up. Do you have questions with like the facts of that before we pass it on to Michael? Understanding it? Okay. Mike, do you want to, or Josh, go ahead and explain why you think you get 50 lots?
Can I get first and last name?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mike Henry from Hendricks Commercial Properties.
And then
Josh Podelko, Trio Engineering.
Sure. So Amy and I have been, and Josh, we've been emailing back and forth over the past couple of months actually looking at this because Amy made us aware of these different subdivisions and how they interpreted PEC area. And we saw our area of RU1 zone land of 50.27 acres. And, you know, we were under the assumption that yes, we can have 50 lots then with that 1-to-1 ratio. So I guess I'll just run through how we looked at the calculation. It's pretty simple. So, Amy,
Do you want me to go back to the GIS?
would you like to put that on the screen so it's easier for people to see?
Oh, sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, no problem. So the PEC on that map, it's not exactly delineated, but it's pretty much delineated by that forest line. And I think you guys have seen it before, where the PEC area is cut out on that south side, but we have 50.27 acres of RU1 zone land. And that includes the PEC. The PEC is just an overlay on the RU1 zone land. So 50.27 acres of RU1 zone land, leads us to think under the municipal code that we're entitled to 50 lots. Now the question is what to do about that PEC. So we looked into it, and that PEC density restriction in the code, and it is section 52-107, if any of you have it on your computer. But that specific section in the code says that PEC density restriction only applies to lots that are completely within the PEC or that have building footprint in the PEC. And under our proposed plan, our PUD that we're looking to bring forward here, none of our lots are completely in the PEC and none of our building footprints are in the PEC. So that eliminates essentially, in my mind, that PEC density requirement per the municipal code. And the reason why we're doing this PUD in the first place is to be able to move the lots away from this PEC, preserve this environmental corridor, to be able to have that nice, trail by the Bark River, to keep lots away from the Bark River, to preserve that whole environmental area. So that PUD, in essence, allows us to move those 50 lots over. Yes, some of the lots are slightly less than 1 acre in size, but the point of the PUD is to, as a trade-off of making these lots a little bit smaller, we can open up all that land in the environmental area. So it's kind of two birds with one stone, two benefits. The city and we benefit, and the citizens benefit from that preservation of the environmental area. And we still maintain, by right, our 50 lots from 50 acres of RU1 zone land, and we keep out of the PEC, so we don't have to worry about disturbing the PEC and having a lower density requirement. So that's how I interpreted it. I don't know if you guys have any, maybe if you have questions, let me know, or if Josh, if you'd like to have anything.
I do just want to make a correction, and I did send this to Michael because he sent me the section of the zoning code. So we're not really even getting into the zoning yet. I mean, zoning is one acre density or lots. But in order to develop land and to address the zoning, it has to be consistent with the land use plan. So we're really still at that very high level land use plan designation. So I am pulling all my information off of the comprehensive plan at this time, which is going to be more restrictive than the zoning code. What he's referring to is the environmental corridor overlay district, which says, so let's say somebody comes in here and they want to build on a lot that's environmental corridor. If it's entirely environmental corridor, they're limited to, and I don't have the language with me, but like disturbing 15% of the lot. They can't disturb more than 15% of the lot. If they're partially in and partially outside of the corridor, they have to develop entirely outside of the corridor. So that's a whole nother, that's like when we get into zoning and they have to be 10 feet from the lot lines and 50 feet from the road or whatever and meet impervious surface. Those are the technical standards that we regulate a lot from. But right now we're just figuring out how many lots they get based on the comprehensive plan and land use plan to move forward to that next step.
Can you show that PEC area again, Amy? I missed that.
On the map?
Yeah, is that?
Yeah, I can. This is, let's see. We are pretty much looking at everything south of that green line.
So the PEC is not that really bright green. The
No,
PEC
dark.
is more or less that dark green. Yeah.
The wooded, it's
The
the
wooded area.
northern wooded line where you have pretty much solid trees.
So the point being made is that counts, but nothing's going to be developed there.
It counts and they get 1 unit per, the way I'm interpreting it.
acres.
They get 1 unit per 5 acre density and they can displace it outside. They can get that credit and then use it outside of the corridor. So instead of developing in the corridor, they're moving it.
Yeah, right.
out.
That meaning that nothing will get developed there,
Right.
but they want it counted so that they can put 4 more houses up higher, more north than
At a higher rate than what Amy's saying is
Yeah.
allowed.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was trying to. I wanted to see that green, understand, and that's what you're saying.
I'm
that's
saying
the
they get credit for 1 lot using that. They're saying they get credit for 4 lots using that.
We're saying that we get 1 lot per acre of RU1 zone land per the municipal code, and the PUD allows us to move those lots out of the PEC so that because there's like two restrictions, right? There's the zoning restriction of the 1 lot per 1 acre of RU1, and if you happen to be in a PEC area, which we are not planning to build in, then it would restrict our density more and make it less dense. So that's why we're taking it out of that land, out of that PEC area, and still having our entitlement to that 1-to-1 per the municipal code. That's I know it's a little bit complicated, our difference in this, but I think that's a fair way to lay it out.
I have a question. How many acres is that area?
What area?
The restricted environmental area?
It is, well, depending on if you're including the wetland. If you include the wetland and upland corridor, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, about 14 acres.
Wow.
But again, the wetland and floodplain is not, they are not given any credit for that because it's
Yeah.
just not developable.
But so just that one area that you have to have 5 acres to build in, how many acres do you feel that is?
Okay, so just the upland would
Yeah.
be 4.7 plus, is that it? 0.5. 5.2 acres. So that's why they get one, they ultimately
Yeah.
get one
That
credit
makes
for
sense.
1 lot.
Only
Right.
one credit for one, yeah.
Right, and that's in my interpretation of the code of that section 52-107. There's no discussion of credits or anything like that. It just says if your lot is completely within that PEC, that's when that density restriction comes into play.
Well, the city, though, also, it follows sewer pack, what sewer pack tells us we can do, which is very important.
Yep, and we have thoughts about that.
Yeah, and Surpac's goal here is not to establish density. It's really to
No.
protect environmental
those
corridors,
areas.
and their position is similar. You know, the 1 lot per 5 acres is relative to development within the corridor. It doesn't speak to development, and even if you look at Waukesha County shoreline ordinance, it really, when you have a property like this where the PEC is partially on a property and partially out, it really speaks more towards the protection of the corridor and not towards lot size or density. And I think the county shoreline ordinance even identifies 2 different ways. If it's an entirely corridor area, it's 1 lot per 5 acres. If it's partial, it should be lots of that base zoning and protected corridor with limited encroachment on the edges. And it
So
SURPAC
with-
says 10%.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're being, because this is getting confusing. They're referring to the zoning code. I'm referring to the that's a very important differentiation. And as far as the county, the way they do it, Josh, you know, I was there for 18 years and reviewed all subdivisions, and I can tell you we interpreted it this way. I did call Sewer Pack, and they did say they are a regional recommending body, and it's really up to the municipality to decide what we do with the development outside of the corridor. So they did not provide a recommendation to me.
All right, so So how did our attorney say that we're the best people to determine what the law says?
Because that's what attorneys like to say sometimes.
No, because I completely understand what they're saying, and I completely understand what.
And it really
because
comes down
our
to
comprehensive plan refers to a recommendation from Sewer PAC, who says most people deal with it this way, and so I understand how it's been applied. We've in the past, especially like Hawthorne Farms in particular. I mean, I just remember going through this. We looked at the Sewer PAC recommendations to generate a yield to determine how the zoning would apply to the land when we rezoned, as far as how they could get the number of houses in. No one's brought this up specifically before in this explicit way. And I'm sure if somehow this sliver of land would generate like a higher yield, it'd be used the other way. I mean, you know what I mean? Like if somehow this was like, you know, high density downtown, they'd leverage it to say we should get more density in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can look at it
this is
multiple
fuzzy.
ways. I think we're just trying to be as accurate and fair as we can be.
This is fuzzy, so I am not sure why, if our attorneys are saying that we're the people who should be determining how this should be interpreted, why this would be precedent setting and why we shouldn't be looking at it conditionally upon this particular property and this particular development.
and I guess when I say it's precedent setting, that's coming from me, because if you make an interpretation of what the comprehensive plan means, it should be interpreted universally. I think the real question in the comprehensive plan, the applicant's referring to the zoning code, is what does residential development mean in the paragraph of the comprehensive plan. Some plans are probably more specific with their determinations. Our comprehensive plan has environmental corridor as a separate map than the land use plan. Some plans, we're actually looking at that, combining it on a single map so it's more transparent to the developer, but it could be written in with more detail for sure. But I don't think there's a difference in how you do it from this development to another one.
And I completely understand where you're coming from with the credit thing and the precedent, but that's not in the municipal code. What's in the municipal code is the opposite. It's saying that with regard to density, in these sewer PAC, the sewer PAC guidelines and our reduced density in PEC applies explicitly in the code to the lots that are in the PEC and the building footprints that are in the PEC, that just by right in the code. So that's where I'm coming from.
Can we ask a question to that?
Oh, yeah.
So you heard the community, right? Why make this an issue for 4 houses? The economics are going to work for you.
Dan, we can't hear you.
Am I on? So Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, why, you heard the community, worried about traffic, worrying about congestion. Why make this an issue for only 4 houses? Right? Like the economics are going to work for you, so why is this so important for you?
Yeah, well, I think 4 houses ultimately provides 4 homes that families can buy in the subdivision. I mean, 4 homes is a lot, and within our rights of the RE1 zoning and the 1-to-1 ratio within the RE1 zoning, I think it's a good opportunity to add more houses within a walkable distance to downtown, and to provide that transitionary density from the parcels to the west to the more dense lands that we're talking about with Miller Marriott. So that's why I care about it from a development perspective in the city.
So, I mean, I'll also argue why we should follow the way that Amy presented it, and that is if you had a 100-acre parcel with 10 acres that was not in the environmental corridor and 90 that was, you can make an argument that you could put 100 units on 10 acres.
So yes, that is a reasonable argument,
you couldn't,
except for the open space requirement.
You couldn't deal with the, no, I know,
Exactly.
I know, all right, no, that's fair. So, I mean,
Well,
So if you can deal with the open space
requirement on a PUD, I mean, there's a conventional development that could take place too.
I know it's
So
So the one thing that keeps sticking in my mind is that Amy keeps using her examples about land use. And if you guys agree, you're doing yours based on zoning, as Amy says, is that correct?
Yes.
And as we've gone through group after group, when we talk, we take a lot of time and effort to say, look, folks, we're only talking about land use and the rules around land use. We move on to the next stage, then we start talking about zoning. So at least in my mind, that's how I'm trying to balance a very difficult situation as to which side I'm leaning on or not.
And I think the, from the landowner's standpoint, their question is from a land use map standpoint, there isn't a land use band here between the C1 and the 1 acre low density that's, a 5 acre density, right? You look at the land use, and like you introduced, it has 1 acre density and it has C1. But we're talking about now part of the C1 or part of the 1 acre not actually being 1 acre. And I think that's the confusing part that we're asking from a land use standpoint.
And
Understanding
one
neighborhood.
concern that I'm just a little confused by is I had brought the acreages and the number of lots that would be allowed way before these meetings. And so, and that's not the reason why we're here today, but, if you guys didn't agree, explaining this earlier in the process would have been a lot more efficient and available. I don't know why it wasn't. I mean, I provided Hendricks with the numbers, and there was never an issue until the development was submitted for the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak about what we did or did not respond to before May when I started working here, but I feel like we've been emailing back and forth on this for a little while. I understand that obviously it'd be good to get it going as early as possible, and that's why we're also doing this way before any PUD potentially gets approved.
Well, just an observation on this is if we've already done this for 2 developments already, I view that as we are somewhat setting a precedence right there to continue that same process with this proposal. So why would we deviate from what we've done successfully, I think, with 2 current developments?
I agree with that on that too.
I mean, that's just how I'm looking at it.
I think we're at that land use point right now, and I'm with Amy on her number.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, I agree.
You guys are saying, you're agreeing that our interpretation is the 46.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you guys.
I
Why
can
are we
speak to
trying to
that.
bend this for 4 houses when that just doesn't make sense to me?
I can't get over the example that what Tim and Amy said too, where if fewer acres were developable and the PEC was a bigger number, you get to put in more lots. That's just hard to overcome that.
So I'll just state, I'm going to try to argue with myself.
You're good at that.
But so to the mayor's point, there's differentiation between land use and zoning. Land use is approved, correct? I mean,
correct.
So we need a presentation on the zoning to approve or disapprove.
Yeah,
and whether or not it follows the recommendation that we're given based on our comprehensive plan and sewer pack.
Right.
The zoning, the GDP that they present, or whatever, the zoning presentation that they present, the land use plan they present, or the plan they present to ask for the appropriate zoning is going to be based on all of our code and the setbacks, open space, and all that other stuff. If it ends up being 3.5 lots too big, it's 3.5 lots too big. That's why I think the next reasonable step is to look at a zoning plan that says this is what we propose based on our interpretation of the code and the land use plan. I'm not saying I agree with one side or the other. I'd like to see the plan and see if it makes sense.
So the zoning already is designated as RE1, so they have their zoning approved. And the next step is to submit the PUD for the development. And I guess what the land use plan amendment was passed, But I'm telling them, based on the comprehensive plan, they don't get more than 46 lots, so they're gonna they can present their GDP with 50 lots, but that is where they're stuck, is based on the comprehensive plan, they're limited in the number of lots they can have.
Yeah, Tim,
So I'm
I
not
agree
sure
with what you say. It's two different steps, but my attitude is why not give that feedback tonight
Yeah,
so
no,
that they
I-
can come back and be more efficient with their plan, right?
Yeah, because otherwise they got to drop too,
Yeah, I mean, otherwise
time and money.
yep. So being open tonight with our feedback, whatever that is, has benefits to them in terms of certainty and speed of what they want to do.
Yeah, and I'd say there might be a great plan with 50 lots and a bad plan with 46.
Could be.
Could be. Yeah, no, it's.
You know what I mean? That's like,
Because I know,
it's
I mean,
really-
just to get, while we're here, to give you guys some feedback, so I'm the Park and Recs representative on the commission, so I love trees by nature. It's my job, I'm supposed to report back to them, and I would just really encourage you to, with Naguick Heights, it was farmland. And so that, you're not clear cutting a lot there, and they preserved a lot to the north there. It's kind of a cool thing. And here you still have the golf course, right, which has a lot of green. But there are some trees and some topology there that I would really, if you guys in your design could really incorporate that rather than a clear it all out, put down new pavement kind of mindset, which I know that's tough. That's a challenge. So I'm throwing the challenge out there. I heard about the oak tree, so you're going to work on that. But just really, if whatever you come back with could really take a look at that topology and the tree coverage and do the best to minimize the bulldozer, the better.
I'd like to read Amy's recommended action. Interpret the City of Delafield's 2030 comprehensive plan to establish the appropriate method of determining density. The decision should be limited to the method of density, not a specific number of lots. The property has not been field surveyed, and the final acreage used as part of the development application may change. I think it says it all right there.
Yep, sure does.
But I'm newest, so I'm going to ask a couple of dumb questions. Have we had a conflict before between the comprehensive plan and the code? That's kind of what we're facing, aren't we?
Not that I can remember.
I'm sorry, what was that?
A conflict between the comprehensive plan, your point, and the code, which is what they're bringing up.
No, I don't, there's not a conflict. It's common to have, so what you're dealing with here is you have zoning, but then you have what is an overlay on top of that zoning, and it's corridor. What the City of Delafield doesn't have is it's not on a single map. They're on separate maps, and so that makes it maybe a little bit more confusing. But it's not uncommon to have a zoning district and then an overlay above it that happens to be more restrictive.
Okay.
And what we're saying is, in this case, there is an overlay which is more restrictive, but per the code's definition of this overlay, per the code, we are not subject to those restrictions because we are not in the overlay. We are not in the PEC.
And I would agree that he's not subject to the restrictions of 52. That's the zoning code. That I would agree with him.
Okay.
Right.
All right, we're getting close to motion time. I can't do it.
Tim's always good at this stuff. I'm waiting for Tim to.
Well, are we being asked to come up with a method of density? Is that kind of what we are trying to do?
Yes, I would say it's as simple as it's either 1 unit per 5 acre density of corridor that's just whether of credit, whether the development itself is in or out, or they get 1 unit per acre because the development is not in the corridor.
So-
And those are your two.
We could say something like if there is a conflict between the comprehensive plan and the zoning code, it would fall back that in Tim's example, where you could put 100 lots on a small thing, that we could say not to exceed the existing zoning of that parcel. And that would give us a little bit of flexibility.
You mean that they would have to have 1 acre lots? Or?
Yes, they could not exceed that, whatever's the existing zoning. So that way they couldn't do 100, because we would never have something that would be zoned so crazy that way, I wouldn't think. But
Yeah, what does prevent us from doing that, or anyone from doing that, is the open space requirement. Yes, that's what you're thinking of, and we do fulfill that open space requirement for RU1, I believe, in our plan. So yes, that's why, we're not doing that, obviously.
But if that would be our method of density calculation going forward, if we ever run into this again, because we've never run into this, right? So
I would argue that we haven't run into it before because at staff level, the yield plan that comes out of the comprehensive plan based on sewer pack has given a number that the developers
Have accepted.
Okay.
And so we're arguing about 3.5 lots. I'm curious if there's not a way to be creative about, I'm assuming that, I know we're talking about the not using athletic fields or anything else, but about a potential future dedication of the land you need based on not developing it past its current use or something like that, that maybe could be negotiated with staff to accommodate an open space inside of lands that aren't being proposed to be part of this development, to say that those would not be developed in the future and or maybe deed restricted, to say that they would be part of this almost like an outlot that would be used in their current capacity, so that should those athletic fields or some other part of St. John's or the applicant's holdings be developed in the future, that there'd be a keep out zone saying these are part of a dedication for future use, and that could accommodate the plan they have in writing.
And we have offered that to them. I'm not sure.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm just saying that I know that something similar has been used in the past for things like parking space, banking, and other things. And I know that with the Hawthorne Farms development, there's been trade-offs as far as what gets developed north of the road, south of the road for future use. It's a little different, but I'm wondering if that wouldn't be a way that staff and the applicant could work this out if we just simply move to adhere to the number in the way that you've been enforcing things in the past, and then we're looking at 46.5 if nothing changes. And should there be some sort of an agreement they come back with that staff recommends, that there's a 3.5 acres that's thrown in the mix here that makes up the difference, we're good.
I have a quick question, if I may. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Amy, I was just wondering, is there a specific clause in the comprehensive plan that spells out exactly how these credits, density credits, are given from the PEC?
No, the paragraph that I believe I stated in my report is the only paragraph that addresses it. So it refers to residential development, and that would be the question.
Okay.
We're saying that's the entire piece is up for residential development. So you determine densities based on that.
Okay, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. My interpretation of it is all codified concretely in the code in section 52 regarding the PEC. So that's why I lean toward more of that as more concrete guidance. I agree. And I'm not pressing for a specific, law to be made tonight or anything. But at least maybe now that some good conversation has been drummed up, Amy and I can work on this more closely and dig into the code specifically, and maybe come back with concrete delineations of the comprehensive plan, the code, what's legal by right, what's just arbitrary.
Works for me, if they want to come back. And
So does that mean most likely they'll be on the agenda again?
I'm not sure.
On the same topic?
Sounds like it. I mean, I guess it can be part of your general development plan with your conditional use. You just have to understand, I believe you're submitting it with 50 lots that may or may not pass at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be part of the discussion going forward, and we'll talk to some maybe attorneys in the meantime, and maybe some attorneys will get a better understanding of it, and we can go forward that way. So that's okay with me at this time.
Well, I'll just, to help provide some formal guidance, I'll make a motion that the applicant work with staff to get a recommendation based on our current and past application of our yield rate per the comprehensive plan.
And the zoning code, please.
And as it applies to the zoning code.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Bob?
So that will result in them coming back. It's
Either with a GDP, with a plan that
Yeah.
Amy doesn't object to.
Towards the 46.
I think.
We'll get through it.
Yeah, and Tim, I think you bring up, I mean, it could be a good plan with 50, it could be a bad plan with 50, so it's not so much the number. I just remember my first perception when I saw it, and I'm terrible at visualizing. It just looked like a subdivision. Everything's nice and square, and just slap it right in, and that's not Delafield, right? So maybe, and I'll just, my personal, if you only have 46, you have maybe more flexibility to move stuff around and make it look better, right? Versus just trying to jam it in. So, you know, for one person's 2 cents, really take what they said about who we are in Delafield, specifically that part of town, and the topology and the trees. Take that into heart and don't look at it as a farm field. Because it's different than Nagawicca Heights. It just is. So take advantage of that opportunity would be my recommendation.
All right, absolutely.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great.
thank
Okay, we are on to 9, new business. DLC 08079850012 3776 Kettle Court East, owner Maud Wisconsin LLC, applicant Alan Johnson, applicant seeks site plan and appearance and business plan of operation. Review and approval to operate a candy manufacturing and packaging business and modify the paint color on the exterior of the existing building.
Should have brought some candy samples.
I think he did.
Heads up, you need the mic, whatever you do, you need the mic.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Point of clarification, Your Honor. There's 2 parts. What would you like me to?
Name and address.
Name and address first.
MAUDBORUP. Who's ever heard of it? Okay. 1 pound gummies. Who's ever heard of them?
Sir, what is your name?
Alan Johnson. JOHNSON.
And your address?
3776 Kettle Court, East, Delafield.
Thank you.
So tell us about your business.
Okay, business part. There's a name, Maud Borum. You guys kind of stepped on my. You know who the 1 pound gummies? Have you heard the 1 pound gummies? No. Nobody?
Gummies.
Okay.
I definitely have one from last Halloween that I gave to my kids, but they don't.
Okay. Maud Borum is actually a female's name. She ran a business in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1907. There was a flower shop, and she said if I could sell some of my candies, it'd be flowers and candy. Who ever thought of that? And she got popular enough where she had a number of stores. The brand Maud Borum has been around since 1907. Christine Lantanen, who owns Maud Borum, purchased Maud Borum, the brand, in 2005. When she purchased it, it was a $100,000 company. In 1 year, she made it from a $100,000 company to $2.5 million. Maud Borum, Christine Lantanen, is a female veteran, Army veteran, and it's a female-owned company. Over 70% of the employees are female. There's a thing called B Corp. Have anybody here heard of B Corp? In the world, there's 5,200 B Corp. In Minnesota, there's 22 B Corp. She worked 26 months to get that certificate. It's a combination of environmental, social, and concerns. Once you get that certification, the following year, the criteria goes up. She has a wind generator in one of her facilities, and we're doing zero waste, not all landfill, zero. It gets burnt, so there's zero waste. Also working with the environment and working with social issues. She is a finalist going to Palm Springs in November of this year for Earnest and Young Entrepreneur of the Year. She won the regional, and she's been moved forward from there. She's from a small town south of Minneapolis in St. Paul called Le Center. And what she wanted to do is help that fledgling area out. So that's where she put her first building. Okay, in that building she does chocolate. There's not enough people. She went from trying to help the town out that she's one of the largest employers in the town. Maud Borab Le Center makes chocolate. Okay? Like chocolate covered pretzel rods, chocolate covered pretzels. I told you this part was going to get fun. Okay. Chocolate covered pretzels. And in June of this year, she purchased a building in the northwest suburbs of Minneapolis, and they make cotton candy. Wait for this winter. Like a birthday cake, you take the cover off, like it's like a birthday cake, but it's all out of cotton candy. You can cut a section, take a piece out, put the cover back on. Okay, now we're going to get to the beautiful town of Delafield. There was a facility in town that manufactured marshmallow-based products. They moved out into Pennsylvania, and the building became available. Christine bought that building, and we want the Delafield location to be the crown jewel of the Maud Borab organization. They have the bones of the building are good. We're doing substantial amount of remodeling. Now just think, when you walk in the lobby, 5-pound gummy bear, or 5-foot gummy bear, I mean. Okay?
My teeth hurt already.
It gets worse. It gets worse. Chandelier, gummy bear. Come on, who would have thought of that?
We're the dentist.
Chandelier, gummy bear.
We need the dentist.
I know.
Don't come and look now, it's not done. We're doing painting, remodeling, removing walls, doing all kinds of stuff. But this is what our plans are. As far as the facility, we're doing state-of-the-art. The equipment that was in there was, it's not state-of-the-art. So we're bringing in state-of-the-art equipment, and we're going to make gummy bears. And we're going to be the premier gummy bear manufacturer in the United States. Some of the products these are on their way right now to small towns or small stores like Target, Walmart, Menards, any place that has a 4,000 order minimum. These are some, I've got some, read the damn thing, pumpkins, gummy teeth. I got some other Halloween stuff.
Your products are mostly seasonal.
All seasonal. When you go, if you want to get into you go to like a Target, there's a line of like where all the Hershey's, all that stuff, that's called line. We're not ever in the line. We're all seasonal. That's where that's where the niche is. We're gonna be setting our equipment up and switching over from season to season. And it's more expensive, it's harder, and it's more challenging to do that. However, there's very few people in that market, and that's where we're going to expand. And we're going to expand in beautiful Delafield, Wisconsin. I've got a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, we've got enough back at the plant. I don't know what to do with this. So if you could give me some suggestions, I've got some here. The other thing is about the building. The building, we're going to talk about the paint just for a second. It's a kind of a industrial color right now, tired. And what we're planning to do, there's the color up on the screens if you guys can look at it. Got it? Okay. Kind of an industrial tired color. We're going to, our proposal is to have like a regal blue. something that I think is more fitting for the area. Outside of that, we're committed to this area. We're suffering a little bit right now with the supply chain because we've got so much equipment coming that it's not set up yet, but as soon as it is, we'd like to invite you and the rest of the council members in to take a look at the facility. To be a world-class food-grade facility. The last thing on the painting, we are very strong with hiring people that are local. On the document there is my name and the address. It's a food-grade facility. What that means to you is it's constantly locked. You can't get into the building. If you're a painter or you know a painter or somebody wants to give me a bid on the painting of the exterior of the building, if I pass, just come to the back by the truck stop or the trucking entrance, ring the doorbell, and have me paged. I'm there all the time. Any questions? And by the way, thank you very much for your time, council.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. I thought it was very interesting. The mayor has loves gummy bears, and I can't believe that we now have a gummy manufacturer in the city of Delafield.
Don't tease me now. You really do like gummy bears, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
he's got them upstairs.
So we have a motion to approve this new business.
Motion to approve the change in color of the building to Reval Blue for the 3776 Kettle Court East building.
And the business plan of
And
operation.
the business plan of operation. Thank you.
I'll second.
Yeah, and if you need to put a gigantic gummy bear on the roof, you just need a special permit. And we're good to go.
So noted. Thank you, Tim.
My office is in Union Grove, so I'll keep it quiet down there around Herringbone. Herringbone started there, so I'll keep this low profile.
That one that John.
Alrighty, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much, and we love this city.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, we'll move on to B, DELC. DELC 08049960003 2750 Gulf Road, Suite C. Owner Lake Country Real Estate LLC. Applicant Scott Bosey. Basie. Bauer Sign and Lighting Company on behalf of Lake Country Pediatrics. Applicant seeks permanent signage on the property to advertise the pediatric clinic. Floor, Amy, any overview or go right to him?
I'll just real quickly, the reason why this one was not on the consent agenda is that oftentimes you have multi-tenant plans or approvals that apply to the whole building. I couldn't find a formal approval. It does look like most of the signage is darker in color. And I know there was one reference to being tan and blue, but there was nothing formal. They're proposing to Lake Country Pediatrics used to be on the south side of 94 by Target, and they have a sign, I think it's still up.
That's correct.
Red illuminated sign, I'm gonna put it on here. This is the existing building with the signage, 2 rows. They wanna relocate that, but put it on the building horizontal across. It complies with all of the code requirements. It just doesn't match the existing, the colors of the other signage on the building. With that said, across the street is the park and ride, so it's not impacting adjacent properties. I guess it's more of an aesthetic question of whether or not you desire it. So my recommendation is at your discretion.
I, for one, think it looks good, you know, in a red tone color. You know, we had it on one side of the freeway. To go on the other side is, you know, I don't see that being a negative impact.
Once we take it down, just so you know, we will be painting the raceway, which is what the channel letters are attached to. So that will match the color of the fascia. Right now, as you see, it has a different color. We'll make that change before it goes up.
Well, hearing that, I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion?
Hold on. Mayor Cahalan?
Yep.
For a second, okay. Gosh, I'm off tonight.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, C, DELC 0751080 2410 Woodland Park Drive, owner David and Sharon Grooms. Applicant Andy Backus. Aspen Homes Incorporated. Applicant is requesting that Planning Commission schedule a public hearing for a special exception from the side yard setback, floor area ratio, and open space to construct a new single-family residence and attached garage on a non-conforming lot. Amy?
Okay, so this
Scott?
property is on the west side of Lake Nagawicca. They are proposing to rebuild a house. There's one there. They are going to rebuild it. I'm going to go straight to the table that I put in the staff report. So this property is non-conforming to lot size and lot width. So if you remember, about a year ago, the code was amended to address non-conforming lots. And there are more specific provisions on when a special exception can be granted by the Plan Commission. So what they're proposing to build is non-conforming to the two side lot lines and floor area ratio and open space. They can apply for all of them. You can apply for the side yard setback if it's not conforming to width, which it is only a 38-foot wide lot on average. It's a little bit wider on one end versus the other. And then the lot size conforming would be 10,000 square feet. They're at about 8,665 square feet. So they're proposing to be 5.08 from one lot line, 5.09 from the other lot line. The maximum amount of relief you can provide is a 5-foot setback. So they meet that. They do have to be at least 5 feet. The requirement otherwise is 8 feet. The floor area ratio, they are proposing 3,905 square feet, which is a 0.45 ratio, 0.451 ratio, I should say. And they're allowed 3,466 square feet, which is a 0.4 ratio. The code does not, you can only grant up to 0.45. So they have to get rid of like 6 square feet, which they're willing to do as a maximum. Otherwise, they would need a variance instead of going through your process, which is a whole nother avenue with a different board, and it requires that they demonstrate a hardship. Open space, they are proposing 6,861 square feet, whereas 7,000 square feet is required. You can't allow more than a 3,000 square foot envelope, which they're not proposing. They are under that. So the code, just as a reminder, you can grant a special exception to allow reasonable use of the property which would not be contrary to or inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the code. And you should find that good cause exists for the granting of the special exception, and that the proposed special exception will not be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance to the adjacent property, surrounding neighborhood, or natural resource. And then the process is that they do have to go through a public hearing, which you can schedule tonight for next month's meeting, which gives the neighbors an opportunity to comment. And you have the authority to impose restrictions to ensure that compatibility with the neighborhood, and to make sure that there aren't impacts to the resources, safety, or public interest and welfare. So, and then I do have in here that you need to consider a site plan and appearance review for retaining walls. It's my understanding that the applicant has reduced the height of the retaining walls. They'll meet the code, so that's probably just going to get scratched from the agenda for next month. I might be going through this too quickly, but so I can go back to the site plan and the GIS map. But my recommendation is that you provide feedback to the applicant. No decisions have to be made. You're just scheduling the public hearing. I don't know why I have May meeting for the September, it's August, September meeting. And that, minimum, they'll need to reduce the square footage by 6 square feet. And I do also just want to note that they would be allowed a footprint of 1,665 square feet and a floor area ratio of the 3,466 square feet without needing to get any approvals from you for floor area and open space. So just keep that in mind in your decision making. Although this process is provided, it's intended for those severely non-conforming scenarios that isn't going to impact the neighborhood. So we'll go back and see how big the other structures are. The building inspector, Scott over there, I'll speak for them, had the following comments: that floor area cannot be developed in attic spaces. The air conditioning condensing unit should be located on the survey and meet the setbacks. I believe that's more of a noise concern and aesthetic. Some pump discharge must be directed towards the lake. The deck stairs need to be drawn on the survey. There is a non-conforming patio near the shore, and you should consider whether or not that should be removed since it is non-conforming. And then there's a rectangular box that's not labeled, and Andy can probably answer to that.
Sure which box you're referring to.
I believe, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking maybe it's...
Scott?
The rectangular box is not on, it was on a survey that I reviewed, but it's not on this survey.
Is it maybe on the
Was it over here?
The existing home survey? By the road? That's the proposed. Do you have the existing home survey?
Yeah, sorry.
The other thing we're going to have to clarify, Amy, is that there are exemptions from, or allowed encroachments into the setback area that would normally be allowed. For example, uncovered stoops can encroach 6 feet into a setback. And so the Plan Commission is going to consider approving setbacks on the order of about 5 feet. So will the applicant at a later date be entitled to encroach further or closer to the property line than what the special exception is going to allow? So I'll write up a memo for next month, sort of detailing that for everyone to consider.
Meaning like an addition or?
The first 30 inches of overhang, like soffit, can encroach.
Right.
Uncovered stoops can encroach. Walkways, framed walkways can encroach. So if you have a normal setback, it's not so imposing. But now we're reducing through the special exception process. In theory, you could build up to the property line with a framed portion of your structure at a later date.
Sure. Or future buyer could or something.
Right, and so I think we need to clarify that through the special exception process.
So, I mean, it could be conditioned upon them getting what is being presented at this meeting, or at next month's meeting.
I agree. I mean, so we'll have to just tighten it down.
As far as that rectangle, I can't find it, so we can, if it's not there, it's not there, and if it is, we just need it identified. Any other comments?
So why do you want the special exception?
Yeah, the basics are, so they've lived in the existing home for 33 years, and they're ready to rebuild.
Try to speak into the mic, please.
They're ready to build a new home. It really started because as we got into the design phase and the survey hadn't been completed yet, we were working off of the county GIS website and thought the lot was wider than it turned out to be. So we had a design that worked well for their family needs. And I reached out to Scott and said, are there any options here that aren't going to require cutting a whole lot of width out of this narrow house on a narrow lot? The existing home that we're proposing to tear down is quite a bit closer to the lot lines. There's a vacant piece of property to the south, which is the shared access to the lake for the neighborhood. And then there's a neighbor real close to the north. So we'd actually be ending up quite a bit further away from the lot line with the new home. Currently they're about 1.5 feet away from the lot line. We'd end up 5 feet on that side. On the south side, the existing home is about 4.5 feet away, and we'll be 5 feet away from there. In addition, there's some, long-standing retaining wall on the south side that encroaches 2 or 3 feet onto the vacant land. That's the shared neighborhood land, so we'd be removing that and planting grass to match what's there. Just feel like the finished product would be improvements in a lot of ways. And the understanding of the option for requesting a special exception on a non-conforming lot is that, it's a small lot. It's hard to fit a reasonable size home on a lot with the 8-foot setbacks. So just requesting to work with the option of the special exception to get them a reasonable average size home. It's basically a 2,100 square foot 2-story, a 2-bedroom home with an average size 2-car garage. Nothing large and ostentatious and unusual here. So just requesting and hoping that because we're ending up further away from the lot lines than currently by quite a bit, especially on the side that affects the next door neighbor, that you'll consider the option. They've spoken to the neighbor. He's all in favor of upping the property value with a nice new home there. He's happy with where the house is planning to be placed to not affect views. Nice that there's not a direct next door neighbor on the south side that we'd be affecting. We'll improve that situation a little bit by getting rid of the retaining walls that are there now. So that's the basics of why we're asking for this.
So you're moving the house 50 feet closer to the water. That's not affecting the neighbor to the north's view to the lake?
It's affecting it, but he's happy with that placement and the view that he has remaining.
Okay.
He was real pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Well, one of the concerns too that I have for houses built like this is what is the grade? Because looking at the elevation, looks like the grade going away from the lake is going to be quite a bit higher. You're so close to that property. What's that going to?
Extremely careful to design the grading plan to virtually not change the grade at all. The only difference would be that we'd be adding swales on both sides of our home to capture any water on our property and send it towards the back rather than towards either side.
Okay.
But it's virtually matching the existing grade. So as an example, you'll see that on the side elevation of the home, as the ground slopes along the side of the garage, following the existing grade, then we've got a set of stairs up to the front door, as opposed to keeping that grade level like would be more common and not have those extra stairs. In order to match the existing grade, we had to do some things like that, knowing that that's always one of the big concerns is that we're not changing the grade and sending new water towards the neighbors or something like that.
So the retaining wall you were talking about before is on the south side?
A small retaining wall on both sides of the driveway to get up into the garage 18 inches without changing the grade even at 18 inches.
Okay,
In order to keep the grade exactly, the new one, to keep the grade exactly as is, a little bit of retaining wall on both sides of the driveway to have the yard grade stay the same.
Okay.
Question about the old retaining wall?
Well, I just know because, I heard that was the answer I was looking for.
Okay.
I just, because I knew you were talking about reducing the height of the retaining wall, and that wasn't, I didn't know where the wall was and what it applied to.
Yeah, I guess some other positives that we've talked about are, there's a lot of vehicles and things crammed in the short driveway right now. We've got a longer driveway with a nice garage now. Cars in the garage instead of on the driveway. Less clutter in the front. We think a fair number of positives compared to what's there now.
Okay.
How many square feet in the current home?
1,600 roughly.
Mike addressed what my concern was. It'd be really helpful to have either in person or a letter from your neighbor to the north stating that he's aware that you're moving 50 feet closer to the lake. So the two areas of strife we see between when we deal with usually the aftermath, when people are following permits and they don't have to get a special exception, is someone who was used to seeing sunrises and now they're in the shade because of people moving closer to the lake, which is their right, but be good neighbors. So it'd be nice to see when you come back at the public hearing, if they are not able to attend, that you get a note from, just not that you need their permission, but it's nice to be neighborly. And the other one is that we see a lot is what happens to runoff and grades and where they're retaining walls and other things, and I know Scott's on top of that stuff, but those are the other concerns. So that Mike beat me to it, but it'd be nice to have a head nod or a thumbs up from your neighbor. It's not necessary. You can deal with the fallout, but we have to approve it, so.
Yeah, I would echo that and consider just moving it back a little bit, because in my neighborhood, I got approved to go a lot closer, but I moved it back so it was in line with the other houses, so it wouldn't stick out and kind of.
I think we're pretty wedged against the width,
Because of the size of
wider
it.
toward the lake.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
closer it's to the shore.
And you're moving cars out of the road. I mean,
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
get, there's give and take.
Yeah, then the other neighbors who built it out got a lot of problems, so it's.
I know.
It happens.
I know.
There's a couple houses, a few properties south of here that are have either been remodeled, added onto, or they're new construction, and they're quite a bit closer to
Yeah,
the
no,
water,
it's
or
obvious. You
similar to
see 'em right
ours.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And those are within view of this house too.
I'll make a motion to schedule, if you're ready for the next month's hearing, I'd make a motion to schedule the public hearing for the subject property for our September meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Before we move on, I didn't get either of your gentlemen's names or addresses, so if we could get those, can you just?
Andy Backus with a B, B-A-C-K-U-S.
Address?
And address is 1069 Turnberry Drive in Pewaukee.
It's David Grooms, G-R-O-O-M-S, and it's 2410 Woodlands Park Drive.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month. All right, we're on to D, DELC 08039942675 Sun Valley Drive. Owner Johnson Bank, applicant Lauren Rumte. The Redmond Company, applicant seeks permanent signage to advertise the new Johnson Bank site. Amy?
Okay, so Johnson Bank, I believe it was just last month, or was it last month?
Yeah.
You approved the site plan and appearance review for a new bank at the vacant gas station on 83 and 94. So this month they are proposing their signage. They have a couple of different types of signage that they're proposing. So on this site plan, I'm just showing where the signs are going. So they are replacing the existing pylon sign,
So that whole thing's going away?
going away in same size, same location
Same
for
height.
a new sign. And then there's a monument sign in the corner of 83 and, what is this, Sun Valley?
Yep.
Sun Valley, same thing, it's going to be replaced in the same location. And then they'll have another, it's not really an entrance sign, it's telling you where to go, directional sign. So the, let's see, what's the first one here? So this is the directional sign as you drive into the lot. It's just directing you to the main entrance in the drive-through. That's 5.5 square feet. It'll be 4 feet tall on the post. It's a gray aluminum background with white vinyl lettering, and it will be non-illuminated. And that sign complies with all of your ordinance requirements. And then here is the new, let me zoom out a little bit, new pylon sign. So they will be removing this one. And then there will be a new sign, exact same height. It is 35 feet in height. It's a little bit smaller. It'll be 53 square feet. So it's a little bit smaller than the existing sign. It just has a more defined modern shape than what used to be there. It will be illuminated. It's double-sided, and it will be lit within, lit white with black and maroon vinyl lettering, and it includes the gray reveal. That sign is about 7 feet from the right-of-way, whereas 30 feet is required. So two things with that. One, they can replace the existing sign that was there as long as they don't change the height. And then you also have the ability to waive the road setback in this area. And then the wall-mounted signage, they're showing their accessible parking sign. You guys, you don't really usually review that, but it fits within the size requirements. And then here's the wall-mounted signage. They moved it from the center to this right side. That's going to be on the north elevation. Is that right? Is it on the north elevation? It says north. I feel like
south.
it should be south.
It should be south.
Yeah, so it's on the south side as you're coming off on Sun Valley. That'll be 33 square feet with black lettering, it'll have black lettering with like a backlit halo lighting. So that'll actually, I think, look really pretty. And then they do have this symbol sign also, just know that. It's very small, I believe. What is the size of that? 5 by 5, that's 26, a little over 26 square feet. And then the monument sign. And the monument sign is 80 square feet, so it's the biggest one. Illuminated white cabinet on gray aluminum base with the gray reveal, and the letters are black and maroon vinyl. That one too is only about 2.5 feet from the right of way, but it's being replaced in kind, whereas 30 feet is normally required. So they would definitely be in their parking lot if they met the 30-foot setback. So my recommendation, they do all of the size. They're proposing 438 square feet. 207 square feet. They're allowed 438 square feet. So they're under the requirements. The pylon sign and monument sign, to be safe, I just recommend, because they are within the road setback, it would be, even though they're grandfathered signs, the way the code was amended is that they should be recording that waiver with Register of Deeds to acknowledge that setback. So it would be a good idea to require that waiver here. And then all other ordinances need to be met, and that means no sign shall result in an internal, external illumination more than 40-foot candles when measured with the standard light meter held perpendicular to the sign face at a distance of 10 inches from the sign. And just so you know, typically a property only gets one freestanding sign, whether it be a ground sign or a pylon sign, but they had the two existing signs on the property previously.
Yeah, so they're grandfathered.
They're grandfathered in.
All right, do you want to go over why you would like these signs?
I guess I would say, for starters, we're very excited to be here. I've worked with Johnson Financial Group for 20 years, and there's a lot of buzz about this location, so we're very excited to be here.
Can I just get your name and address, please?
Sure. My name is Brent, B-R-E-N-T, Hess, 707 River Ridge Drive in Waterford, Wisconsin. So when we looked at this site, we do our demographics, and we put a lot into where we'd like to be located. And when we saw this location, the signage right away for us, signage is huge for an FI. Coming new, as a new business coming into town, wanting to be visible right next to the eye, we were just really excited about that. And so one of the things that really attracted us, not only was Delafield, but it was a special signage package. And for us, we're looking at really improving the lot. This is all just part of it. I'm going to digress a little bit, but we're decreasing impervious surfaces, we're increasing green space. Significant environmental issues with the site that we're completely taking care of on our dime to make sure we're bringing up. We've partnered with the DNR. We're definitely going to leave this site. We're definitely much better than we found it. And so, like I said, signage is an important amenity to us, and really we're just looking to replace what already exists in the same location exists in, but just make it more modern.
I'm really glad you're getting rid of that big, ugly old
Yeah,
tower
me too.
sign.
Can you make the paint flake off? I'll make a motion to approve the permanent signage for Johnson Bank, contingent upon filing a waiver with the county for the setback on the I-94 on the off-ramp.
94 and Sun
94
Valley.
and Sun Valley.
Sun Valley.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
Welcome to Delafield.
Excited to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions,
I was wondering
passes.
if he was going to do that.
Okay, last under new business, DLC 0740018, 1752 Journeys Drive, and DLC 0740019 1790s Journey Drive. Owner and applicants Michael Memel and Christine Martin. Applicants are requesting site plan and appearance review and approval of a proposed 6-foot-high vinyl privacy sign. Amy.
Okay, so this property, just hold on here, is located in the northeast corner of the city, part of Harbor Point condominiums, if you're familiar with that. The property owners of this southeast condominium building is proposing a 6-foot tall fence along the south lot line. The fence will be about 148 feet long. 96 feet will run along one condominium and then 52 feet along another condominium. It'll be khaki in color and approximately 2 feet from the property line. And then there is a rendering in the packet, which I will go to. Fences that are 6 feet in height and also close to the lot line do require plan commission approval as part of the site plan and appearance review. Scott looked at it and doesn't have any concerns unless you have anything else to add, Scott. And I don't really have any concerns either. This is the fence, khaki color.
Yeah. I have a question. Why they feel that they need a fence? Because I'm seeing some very large arborvitaes.
Yeah. So why don't you give us your name and address, and then you can answer that question. Tell us who you are.
Yes, my name is Paul Price. I live at 1792 Journeys Drive, right next door to Sue and Mike. They were not able to attend tonight because of the last second. If they would have known it was 9:45, they probably could have been attended. But so I told them we'd be happy to stop by. I started the project. I was going to be part of it, and then backed out. I decided to try trees one more time on my side because I'm on the east side. The problem with the arborvitaes that were there, the deer keep eating it, so they're all gone again. And poor Chris spent a couple $1,000 planting them, and they're gone. So the only thing that will sustain the animals out there is having something vinyl that's going to stay there. We tried a fabric fence last summer, and that lasted about 2 months, and the wind blew that away. So the only thing's it's got to be something solid. This is very well constructed by a contractor from Home Depot, 4x4, set in cement with the nice vinyl that slips over. It'll look real nice. It'll be back between trees, so it won't be that exposed to either side, but it'll block the view, especially in the fall and in winter when the foliage that is gone. And that's when they're worse for you. And Scott can contest what the two lots look like on the other side. So we're just trying to kind of keep all the nice landscaping that we've been done, not to have to look at the basic trash that's on the other side. So, but I think that'll look nice on both sides of the fence, and the animals won't be able to take it down.
So you're putting up a fence to avoid seeing another property that you don't favor because of the condition of it?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks for trying nature, but I know the deer love the arborvitaes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the fence on the subject property DLC 0740018.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Good luck building the fence. Okay, we are now up to number 10, comprehensive plan zoning ordinance revisions.
Mayor,
Now.
could we have a 2-minute break?
Oh, you just don't want to finish it up?
3-minute break? Well, I don't know.
Anybody have to go? We're almost there.
Sounds like yelling.
I think there's
School.
Tim
I
does.
think this is going to be. I think this is going to be more
Raise
than a
your hand.
4-minute discussion.
Raise your hand if you have to go.
Can we make it? No? Okay, we are taking a 3-minute break. 3-minute break.
Thanks, Tim. I don't see this.
I'm not a chocolate person.
Oh, you are?
No.
Oh, I'm into my chocolate.
I like real dark and kind of bitter chocolate, but I only want.
Okay, everyone, we're gonna get back at it here. So if I could get everybody's attention, please. Okay, so we're doing number 16, comprehensive plan zoning and ordinance revisions. I am not gonna read all 20 DELCs here. I'll just tell you that there are 20 of them. And move on to applicant. City of Delafield, provide feedback regarding amending the land use plan category from the agricultural category to planned mixed use in accordance with the Economic Development Focus Group recommendations and initiate a land use plan amendment application. Amy, floor is yours.
So I wrote notes down, and they are
You on?
printed
Are you on?
in about a 3-point font, so bear with me here while I try to read my own notes. So the discussion that we're going to have right now is related again to the Economic Development Focus Group project that went through the process in 2018, specifically toward their recommendations related to amending the Highway 83 corridor from the agricultural category to the mixed planned use category. And with an idea that there would be a special use area designation. You may recall this is kind of new to the city, but we just did that in downtown intentionally to, although we're giving it a category and saying it's planned mixed use, that special use provides the text and detailed restrictions, or as detailed as you want them to be, to go with them. So we'll talk about that in more detail. And then the, let's see here. The idea behind that special use area, again, is so that the city can preemptively restrict the areas before a developer would even attempt to rezone it to allow something other than those uses allowed under the existing zoning category. So rather than having to deal with every little detail at the zoning stage, if you know you don't want a certain kind of use, we can call it out in the land use plan up front. So a little background regarding the Economic Development Focus Group, more for the public than the plan commissioners. And as a side note, Danielle Henry did host a council person, alderman, I get.
Alderperson.
Alderperson.
There you go.
Did host a neighborhood meeting this past Saturday where I did give a more formal, like 15-minute presentation. And we had back and forth conversation for about 2 hours. So it was a very healthy meeting. I don't want to, go through all of my presentation. I'm not going to tonight, but it is available, and I can post it on the website and share it with the plan commissioners so you know what was said at the meeting. So with the Economic Development Group, it was initiated and appointed by the mayor. The group was appointed by the mayor with approval from the council in 2021. There were 9 members on the committee, including residents, city plan commission members, council members, business owner, and a developer with diverse perspectives. And the members were also from different geographical areas within the city. The group met 5 times for a total of approximately 15 hours. The meetings were about 3 hours long each. All of the meeting materials, minutes, and videotapes of the meeting are available at www.delafieldgrowth.com, so you can learn everything that took place. The group started by identifying areas that could be considered for responsible growth, and they provided recommendations for the city to consider. At our very first meeting, we put up maps, quadrant maps of the city. And all they did was put stickers on areas where they felt the area should be discussed and changed. And this area was probably the most significantly stickered zone of all of them. So several of the members put several stickers on the various properties along 83. And those stickered maps are on that website as well. So the purpose behind doing this is in order to manage the existing budget deficit. You heard several people talk about that tonight. That initially required a 5-year increase to taxes via referendum that was passed in 2020. So the idea is to hopefully not have to go to referendum again once that 5 years is up. But in order to do that, the city needs to realize approximately $75 million in property value above the baseline growth that you see within that time frame. Otherwise, the city will have to consider further reductions in services spending, force additional fees, and find alternative revenue and funding sources. It's also important to provide that thriving community and make sure that there's a mix of commercial, residential, and nonprofit properties and open space for that matter. The city did consider a cost of community services study that was provided, and with that, it was looked at what the cost of the land use is versus the cost of taxes or the revenue of tax revenue that comes in, and what that means as far as services. The Highway 83 corridor was an area, again, identified by several of the members. And again, the final recommendation was to modify this area to plan mixed use. And so I'm just going to zoom in. I know this gets kind of hard to read. So with that, they generally spoke about the reason why it's planned mixed use is these are very large parcels of property, and when you include potentially properties from multiple property owners or even looking at one property from a single property holding, there may be appropriate different uses that would work for the property. So what the focus group came up with is the areas along 83 should be held in a more commercial light industrial use. And then as you go west, transition from medium density to low density residential. On the north side of the river, they recommended 2-acre residential along, is it Fair, what is the name of that road?
Fair Lakes.
Fair Lakes. Fair Lakes, 2-acre residential. And then on the south side of the river, they were recommending more of a 1-acre residential on the west side along Hirschman. So that was their specific recommendations. They show on here like some generalized potential road connections, but again, all of these locations, specific boundaries, road connections, stormwater management, requirements for open space and buffering would all be reviewed as part of a development proposal. And the special use district that would be developed would ensure flexibility in the boundaries. So like even on this northeastern orange parcel, that's probably too large for commercial industrial. I think there's some steep area, there's a strip of corridor, so there would be some flexibility based on the actual site conditions. And as part of this process, you have the ability to move those boundaries too if you think they're indicating too much one direction or another related to uses. Let's see here, I'm just trying to read these notes that are so small. So the special use designation would include provisions related to uses, flexible boundaries, encouraging or requiring plan unit developments with larger common open space areas, review or prohibit the type of traffic that connects to Fair Lakes Parkway and Hirschman Lane. And then you could also, on Saturday there was some discussion about specific uses, especially related to industrial uses and the noise related to it and the lighting. I think it was brought up tonight too. And so there are certain uses that you could outright prohibit as not even being available, or just restate that, through that site plan process, which we do anyway, we're looking at all of those components. The group also did emphasize the importance of ensuring that protections are in place to allow the continuation of existing farming and residential and also appropriate buffers. So whatever would be done, it would be ensured that those agricultural and residential uses can remain until they choose to modify them or come in here and request modifications. And then maybe more important to know is that these properties are all still zoned agricultural, and so no commercial or increased density would be allowed without going through a zoning amendment, which requires a public hearing on its own. The other thing just important to note is the land use plan provides the city's vision for the community looking out 20 years into the future. The previous plan did not have, so the 1990, I believe it was the 1991 plan, did not have agricultural as a category. Prior to that, it was in there as a category. And then it was added back in 2009, in part because there was a lack of development pressure with the recession, but that there was an understanding that the area would eventually succumb to development pressures. There's also comments in the plan about securing the rural atmosphere and undeveloped nature of the areas for perceived benefit of preserved open space to promote development near the city center. So all of those things need to be looked at as part of this amendment. And then, you know, I think we talked about this on Saturday too. This is in a stretch of Delafield between, along Highway 83 between 16 and 94. The owners of these properties might just have a hard time sustaining their agricultural practices long-term into the future. And it may be hard to sell them for the types of uses that they are permitted for today, which is rural residential. So we can kind of leave it there if you want to have some discussion. I did share with you, and this gets pretty detailed, if you propose to move forward with the land uses that are shown on the document on the screen, I have a lengthy like special use designation area text that we could go through or discuss at the next meeting. I mean, there's a lot to consider here. Some of them, just a couple of things I found in the zoning code that could probably move into the land use plan as part of this special use area. If you do end up including light industrial, and one reason why the committee chose light industrial is that I think earlier the candy manufacturer that you could see the neighborhood with that street cul-de-sac, that's the only area in the city that's designated for manufacturing. And through that cost of community service study, it was determined that other than agricultural, which doesn't bring a lot of revenue or cost a lot, they cost very little, industrial is the lowest type, the use with the second lowest cost to the community.
City services.
Yeah, and depending on the type of uses you allow, they typically have very low traffic, actually. And so it was just identified that if you look around the city and you try to find other areas for industrial, this seemed to be the most practical location. So there are some sections in the code that could be carried over, such as light manufacturing use shall not create a degree of noise, vibration, smoke, dust, odor, fumes, or other operating characteristics which would be detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood area. This determination shall be based upon a technical review of the operational plans. In this case, it says building inspector, but it doesn't have to say that. All light industrial uses shall be conducted within completely enclosed buildings, was one example. There's some other language that evaluation of compatibility between the residential and commercial uses should specifically include lighting impacts, screening of parking areas, outside storage and loading areas, preserving privacy, noise impact, and hours of operation. So those are some of the language that we could include, but there's a whole lot more in here. Do you want to just talk about it more broadly before getting into this? Or do you want me to just keep going?
I have some questions. I'm not quite sure about this industrial where it's supposed to land on this. I thought it was going to be up in the far north by 16.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where it's supposed to be? Okay.
So if you look at the map to the left,
because I keep hearing 83 and
the bottom.
Vettelson, yeah.
That goes up
Okay.
to Vettelson. North of that, you have the shopping center.
what I would have liked to see is where there's residential within that area.
Well, you can see right there on that map.
It's very hard though to see, and I know for a fact that not all
you
the
blow it up,
residential
Amy?
is on there.
Yeah, I'll put GIS on, but just looking at this map, so
That's
this is the
ULS.
school. And then you have
remember,
this.
there's all woods and everything all around that whole
Yeah.
thing. So that whole straight line there is woods.
And then
We're
you kind of
talking
a
though about
funky
the peach
development
area,
here.
aren't we?
Where?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about where the farm is. That would be all that
Yes.
peach
So
area?
the bottom green on that left map is the Bark River.
Right.
So you're looking at everything between the Bark River and Highway 16.
We know school, there's a
Right.
small house south of that. And then this is, I just keep forgetting, Fair Lakes Parkway.
Right. And that's where
And
it's,
that's where your residential, this is where the residential is. I can go to the.
so there's not light industrial,
Near.
in the general guidelines, anywhere near that on purpose.
I'm
Right?
kind of sensitive to this industrial thing because where I live, back in the 80s, we tried to nail down the zoning in my district. And even though it was zoned for no industrial, no factories, someone did, and we fought tooth and nail to keep them out. Somebody did come in and want to put a factory in my neighborhood, right next, 30 feet from my neighbor's house. He's got 2 little kids. And I'm very sensitive to where this is going to be and how close it's going to be to residents.
Sure. We need to make sure we get that into the conditions that we would have for this area where light industrial would go.
It would
But I
be
think the
nice,
focus group also had that same,
yeah, we
the
have to be
same
very sensitive to
concern,
that.
right?
I would like to see a dividing line that as to where this, and not just a whole plot and you've got some residentials in there. I would rather see where exactly this vacant land is that you are going to want to do industrial versus where the residents are now.
Well, so I think that's where this gets challenging, and mixed planned use is a little bit broader, because without seeing a development proposal, it's really hard to see where that's appropriate. There's so many things that need to be considered. I think somebody mentioned, how do you make that a successful transition from commercial to residential? Somebody's got to get really creative with the development, or it gets broken up a certain way. And I don't think we want to agree to specific lines, or the city wants to agree to very specific lines without seeing how it may actually work.
We want to put
So-
language in the land use recommendation, though, that requires thoughtful separation. We don't have to draw the line to show
Right.
where that
Okay.
is.
All right.
But we need to be able to make sure that we put that
Yeah.
in there so that
Right.
when and if the rezoning request comes with, or the zoning request with the potential development, that those things are upfront and forward.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's things in here, like in one of your districts, you say medium to high intensity uses such as large manufacturing facilities, uses that require heavy truck traffic or chemical processing are not permitted. I mean, you can get pretty specific with what you do or don't want.
The other area that I'm concerned about too is from the Bark River south. We want to do commercial there. And I think we have to be very specific what you're going to put there. Because on the opposite side of 83 are medical buildings, there's office buildings. That type of business is kind of, that low impact is what I see in that area.
Yeah.
I think that's what the focus group
yeah.
envisioned, so when the
Don't let-
term
I
light
think some-
industrial is used, it's more business part.
And I would encourage when we get to that point that the residents come in with ideas of what they would like to see there and what they don't want to see there.
Yeah.
One person mentioned restaurants. You don't want restaurants. You don't want to be smelling food 24/7. And then worry about critters because it's food. I have that problem even with grilling because the raccoon, after I'm done grilling, get up on top of my grill and want to get in it. So
The east of 83, what is that called? Because it's not
light industrial.
It's so
yeah.
So that's still called light industrial, even though it's
Yeah.
kind of like a
It's
business park.
offices.
It's not a business park because there are some
Well, they did it
manufacturing farther
smart.
east.
They actually
Not
did
very
it
far.
smart because they put the real low impact stuff on 83.
Yeah.
And back of that is more the heavier industrial.
So like
stuff.
that Pro Health is considered light industrial, I guess.
Yeah.
Scott, is it zoned industrial?
Commercial
How is it zoned?
office.
I mean,
That's
look at
included in there, commercial
Look at the map of
office.
what's there. There's Tool and Die. There's Medline is right there next to Town Bank.
Yeah,
That's
those are a
big,
little farther though in, right? With the
Right.
ones right on
I don't know.
83.
Medline's like 100 yards off of 83.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's
But-
right behind Town Bank.
Yes,
And then
but
there's
it's
and then
behind
there's,
Town Bank.
there's Caliber. I mean there's
Yeah.
there's
Tim
auto
works
body
over
places.
Yeah.
I used to. Well, we moved our company. I didn't get fired. But
Thanks for
no,
sharing.
it's an entire mixed use of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is light industrial.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say
But I
that
do
just
like
because
the-
what you see is,
Right.
you know, a music store and other things. There's
Right.
some things that face 83, but
right.
yeah, so say you want to just fold that over onto the west side, I don't necessarily think so. It might, I mean, just, it merits a lot of thought as far as opening the door for any of that in Delafield, I think. No, I know it does. And so, yeah, the art would be in where a decision would be made to change land use to light industrial to avoid what people on the west side of 83 are already saying is an annoyance all the way across behind Culver's and wherever else they're hearing noise and the waste disposal place and other things. I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have to
That's
put a
further out.
pretty tight noose around what you'd allow.
But just keep it-
What is your,
Keep in
Amen.
mind, you got light industrial. I mean, that's a broad spectrum. I know that. I work in Tool and Die. And how many times we get a full-size semi to drop off a 25-pound box. So, you know, we can't dictate to carrier, you know, to our customers what carriers they can and cannot. So you can't say light industrial, but we're gonna restrict the truck traffic. That just can't happen. So, you know, it's impeding the function of the business. So that's all things that we gotta take in consideration here on how we say anything with manufacturing, light industrial. That, like I said, that's too broad spectrum of a
Yeah.
label to put and say, we would allow this and not allow that. Coming back to what some of the people had said, you know, it's a good question is would you want this next door to you? And I think we have to look at it that way too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm all for having some level of an industrial park because businesses, we need it, you know, but where and how do you designate that? Should we, instead of spreading something like that over two large parcels, put it in one area that's gonna have a far less impact than if we just say, here, this is north, this is south, and we're gonna just divide it between the two. I don't know, you know, what the answer is right now, but I think that we have to look at that too. You know, when we're looking at land usage. You know, we like I said, we can't put something in someone's backyard if we don't want it in our backyard.
Well, I'll say I have a pretty good idea of where you say north and south in particular. You know, take a drive up there and look at the different, both areas. I understand this is all Highway 83,
Can you
but
go
these are,
back to this?
these are distinctly different areas. I mean, they're both relatively flat until you get to the railroad tracks. However, if you look at the areas of accessibility in the north parcel here, where we're talking, you know, by east of University Lake School and Campbell, was it Campbell Trace Road? If you look at the accessibility and where you'd be getting traffic to and from this area, granted it's along a railroad track, but I wouldn't believe it, but my mom she lived by the Neshota fire station, and I thought the trains would drive her nuts. She barely heard them. She was 100 yards away. But that's a nice, when you drive along Vettelson Road there and you look down there, it's a really nice, looks like a fertile valley. I think it'd be kind of a shame to put a light industrial park there. It almost looks like the designation was put there, like someone said, if you had to pick a spot in the city to put a light industrial park, where would it go? And someone put a sticker there. When you talk about accessing it by the homes that are there and behind the farm, I think that might be a mistake. I think that should be more of the 2-acre residential and low residential. I mean, that's my gut. Is that?
Yep.
But this is just my interpretation of this so far. I don't think light industrial belongs up there in general.
To the north?
On the north parcel. The map that kind of makes more sense to me is down on Oakwood, around Oak Brook Church, where we've got the transition between across from Town Bank and that other area where we've got right along 83. And it's right next to the Rustic Manor. They did the road improvements and there's a stoplight right there. Is there a stoplight there?
No.
No.
But we
There
did
probably would be one.
We planned a road when they came in for their parking lot.
I think they had to pay for all that.
expansion. Yes.
And I think they should
That
actually
was-
get paid if we put an industrial park. Anyway, that's my, but that's gonna be a stoplight if we put an industrial park in there, I would guess. But that makes sense to me down there. And then transitioning that, there's a big buffer then to Hirschman Lane. That's my gut, my first pass on this is I'm not a big fan of the commercial light industrial up behind where there's a farm. It looks like a nice tucked away spot.
Yeah.
Jam some industrial in there, but I don't think that's right. That's my gut. But on the south side, I think you could make a reasonable transition, sort of like what's across the street in Heartland. So that's my 2 cents on first read of this. And I think we need to digest, I don't think this was in the packet, this list of
No,
recommendations. So I think this needs to be aired out before we talk about this further. I think the public needs to see this.
Yeah.
As far as these different bullets.
And with that, I would recommend everyone read it and come up with, these are initial
Yeah,
words, so just, write down your thoughts and ideas.
Okay.
That's my first read on this, and from what I've heard, and if you drive back in there and you look at it, not just from a aerial view, but feet on the ground, I think it's important to understand what people have built there and who lives there. And
Tim, do you have a recommendation that would so do you have an issue with the area that's already drawn as blue? Drawn blue, that's 2-acre residential?
yeah, make it 3. No, no, I think that's good, and I'd say I would say a transition from 2-acre residential because the houses by the farm, the farm there, they're nice homes. But they're between half-acre and acre lots, and it's a way of life there. And I think transitioning from 2-acre residential to match those homes there would be a lovely way to deal with that whole valley
So
there.
go from 2-acre to
medium.
something, yeah.
Yeah, medium-ish. I don't know. I mean, medium means down to quarter, but those are half-acre lots, so whatever makes sense. It'd be nice to have a conservation subdivision in there to deal with the fact that we've got the woods by University Lake School, and then those people who built their own. Forget the Ayn Rand book, but it looks like somebody built their own little paradise on that, into that private road.
Oh, yeah.
But so that's my thought there is hey, the revenue looks great, but I think we can make a go of it with some nice residential properties in there too.
In the northern part?
Yeah, but I think the southern area, these are different properties. I think the southern area personally is very conducive to, it's flat, it's very conducive to transitioning from Hirschman Lane and designing the roads in a way that buffers the neighborhood and transitions from, from low density to medium density commercial on the southern
close to a
line. I think they're different properties. Dealing with them both at the same time in the same way is wrong, but.
So there's a couple things with this southern part that I think is important to note. So Rustic Inn, their owners are here. They have submitted an application and they would like to rezone their property to commercial. So that right now their use is subject to a conditional use. You probably all remember it.
Yep.
And they're required to live on the premises and they would like to be able to move off-site. So they're going to be coming in next month. They would like to get going. I had asked them to hold off to see what happens with this larger proposal. And then we have received inquiries. We have no development proposal submitted related to senior family, which if it were in a commercial land use category or residential, senior family is a conditional use actually only in the commercial district, not in a residential district. So it's kind of interesting there. That was a recent amendment within the last year.
Wow.
I can't recall, I'll have to look to see if there's any residential districts that they're allowed in. But the idea was to get them in areas like this with high traffic and easy access.
Close
So
to
I-
main artery.
So I believe we'll be seeing something with, potentially with a concept plan with senior family, senior living and transitioning to single-family homes.
That
So
sounds
just
good.
keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So you may lose, my point is you may lose more, if that happens and you approved it, you'd probably lose your industrial piece altogether, so.
Do we know at this point how much conservancy land is in this?
It's a lot of farm field.
There is, so
Well,
along the
but
river.
Bark River there is
Yeah,
there.
it's a long-
And that's a big swatch.
Yeah.
And then there's more on the north side. The south side's
Yeah.
pretty, just
Yeah,
pretty
the
big
south
field.
side's fine, but the north has got a lot, I think.
And I do want to bring this up on the environmental side of that. You know, having been on the lake welfare for nearly 2 decades and participating in countless number of SOAR-PAC studies that the city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on over that period of time. When you're trying to protect the river and you're trying to protect the lake, the biggest type of challenge property is agricultural land.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause
They
of runoff.
they put in the largest amount of sediment and chemical runoff from the fertilizers that add nutrients to the water, that cause extensive plant growth. It's a big win to have this area not be negatively affected, in this case, by farmland runoff. And when we were to convert this to any other use, it is going to be an improvement, a significant improvement to that watershed and that water. And all the water that lands in that farm field now will be required by our ordinances to stay on the land and verify that isn't case what happens. So it is a significant win if, you know,
I agree.
to environmentally, to at least as far as protection of the watershed and the lake, to have another alternative when down the road for development.
And just to add to the stormwater review, we have a full stormwater management ordinance. Any development needs to comply with that ordinance. The city's ordinance is more restrictive than the county's and the state's stormwater ordinance. So it is very strict. The idea being that the property will be better off after the development than it was pre-development as far as runoff goes. And quality and quantity of water leaving the site. Dan's probably better at
10, 100.
Yeah.
Keep those numbers in mind.
Yeah, I just want to make one other comment too is, you know, have always been very sensitive to 83 becoming another Blue Mound Road.
Yeah.
Right? And I recently went through the border agreement again. Amy had gone through it, but there's always been a rumor or a statement that I've heard for years living on that side of the city that there was a border agreement that didn't allow retail, that you couldn't have fast food and things like that. And at least as far as the city of Delafield is concerned, there is no such agreement that has any requirements like that. The Village of Heartland restricted the use to not include things like retail. And so they have that in their setup on their side of Highway 83, but we do not. So I certainly would not advocate for any fast food, anything that would make it appear to look like Blue Mound Road. And however we write the descriptions to make sure those types of uses would not be allowed on Highway 83. I think during the Saturday meeting, somebody talked about Arby's and things like this.
Yes.
I mean, that's not the kind of use I foresee anywhere along Highway 83 in this process.
Yeah, that's something like 83 and 984, you would have that.
Do we know what kind of industrial demand we have? Anybody, if you had a industrial park.
Gummy bears.
Fill
And remember, it includes office too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Medical
somebody said, let's not get hung up on the manufacturing part. We can nix the manufacturing part and just be, light, where, I can read off some of the things that they have in the, that Heartland had in their border agreement, but it basically limits the uses to warehousing and light assembly and office space. I mean,
No
they're pretty
out-
restrictive in the 5 or 6 things that they allowed, and maybe you know it better than.
Well, I mean, no outdoor uses,
Yeah.
no outdoor storage. I mean, that cleans it up right there. Have high building standards, don't allow metal buildings.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
that-
not a cheap place to operate.
Right, they require brick exteriors and all, sorts of requirements for this light industrial office use. They are sufficient off-street parking, green space requirements. I mean, they want their light industrial park to, as best they could, to look like a mix of a park and some buildings.
So if you went more down that route of office and get out of the other side of 83 with industrial, could you line this whole section? Could you line it right up 83 with, I don't know if call it a block, but one block of office all the way up, turn there as you're going towards ULS, and then everything inside of it is residential?
Well, I think you would.
You need
so
a
the
transition.
highway department isn't going to allow you to have a bunch of access points off the highway, so it would be
You
more
only
of
get
an
2.
interior system, I think.
Okay. Because
Cardinal.
that might be a way to look at this instead of the way we've broken it up is look at what borders 83 and then the railroad tracks, and can you carve out this definition of non-residential that we're hunting around, and then try and create inside of that a residential footprint.
That's what I think we're trying to do here in words to describe it, but until a real applicant comes,
Yeah.
we can't draw the lines. Dan, can you tell us, I don't want to misspeak on what is allowed as far as access points on that road? It's only 2, right? One at Cardinal?
I'd have to look at the right-of-way plat. I don't think that's all restricted access, so
I thought I remembered prior discussions where they said only where we could connect
Does
was
Mr.
on
Seaman know?
on Cardinal
2, it's the 2. Well, I
and
know
then right down by
where Walnut Road was intersecting is where we were planning a road to come in.
Yeah, but I'm talking, there's only 2 ways onto 83. And that's Cardinal and that's next to the,
Walnut Ridge?
no,
Yeah.
where they just built the access.
Yeah, that was Walnut, I believe.
Is that Walnut?
it is
Okay.
Walnut Ridge.
Those are the only 2 places that
Yeah.
you can get on or off of 83 heading to the west.
In addition to what's there today.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And it might be worth a discussion with DOT planning to see where they're at with 4-laning Highway 83.
Well, what Tom said is they're planning to resurface it
Yeah, that's
like
a
2
Band-Aid.
years. But if they're going to
It's not a Band-Aid.
resurface, they're not going to tear it up anytime to put in 4 lanes.
Say
Would be
5
the
years from
idea.
now.
It could
And once
come
they
in 10
resurface it,
years.
that means it's way
No,
down.
I
the-
wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say that?
Oh, no, I
okay.
wouldn't. Because this is more or less a Band-Aid. They're not doing anything to the base.
Oh, they're just
Just
okay.
a mill and overlay is what I was told. So
Wouldn't
that's-
development drive that too?
83 is already beyond the DOT threshold for 2 lanes. It should be 4 lanes. But there's a lot of political reasons behind that. We won't go into those.
Well, Heartland's pushing. My understanding is Heartland's pushing for 4 lanes.
Used to be 13,000 vehicles a day, and I believe 83 is around 18 right now. So that's just to point out where you're at for 4 lanes.
Yep. I can remember when I was here when it was only a 2-lane and it had all the curves, hairpin curve at the bottom.
So it's 10:30.
Yeah.
So we got to wrap this up.
Thank you.
So what direction are we giving Amy here? Take our comments and come back with some
Yeah.
possible
Definitely want
restrictions?
to dig into this.
Yeah, let's, we'll study up on this, come
Yeah.
back.
I would say I still don't have a lot to go off of. So why don't you study the special use areas and think about the color coding and uses and maybe draw your,
Yeah.
come prepared to the next meeting with some new ideas and where you think boundaries may be appropriate. And
Take a tour of the area before that.
now,
Be a good.
Rustic Inn did ask to come forward, so they can't rezone the property without a land use plan amendment, so we may need to consider we are going to need to consider their request out of sequence. You know, whether or not you choose to move forward with it or not, they do look out, you know, they're already going to be scheduling for 2024, so they're just trying to understand their business model at that point.
Alrighty. All right, no motion there. We understand what we're supposed to do. 11, report of city officials, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting September 28th, regular meeting submittal deadline August 31st. Correspondence, I'll refer to that in the packet plan, or any report.
I think I've said enough today. I'm good.
Okay, building inspector.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Thank you. Gosh. All right, seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 10:34.
All right.
It's 2 long ones in a row.